Welcome to a special edition, a spooktacular edition of the Essex County Ghost Project Paranormal News Spooktacular Halloween Special. It's Halloween. It's my favorite holiday of the year.
And mine.
And Kathy's too. I want to introduce Kathy, the co-host of the show. We're actually going to have a great day today. We got a lot of things planned for this humongous Spooktacular 3-hour special. We're going to be here for 3 straight hours tonight. It's going to be a great evening. We're going to have a pumpkin decorating demonstration. We got some legends coming on in the paranormal. Some people have been around a long time and some just making their way up the ladder. We're in for a very great evening tonight. And I hope everybody tuning in tonight, either on channel 8, channel in Lawrence, channel 98 Methuen, on Roku, or on Apple TV, or even on the website. The website's up and running. We got the updated studio stuff, so we're working along very well here. What I want to start off with is, well, Kathy, thanks for coming in tonight, first of all.
Thank you for having me again.
I know we don't have our normal trick-or-treating, but you... Name of the website. Oh, the name of the... Yeah. The website is LCAT TV if you want to check out it on the website. Thanks.
So, LawrenceCTV.com.
Got it. Yeah. I knew I was going to... I don't know what happened on that one. Yeah. But we're all set now, so we're cruising along here. And we got a guest that's going to be on in a few minutes. So, but I want to talk about, this has been a different Halloween. I know I'm excited, but really, is it exciting? Most cities and towns have canceled their trick-or-treating.
Right.
It's very tough. Poor kids. That's why we're doing 3 hours tonight, so everybody can actually have something to enjoy.
Right, and when they get home from trick-or-treating, they can tune in to us.
Right, or they can check it out later on, too, so it's not like they have to watch the whole thing right now. I know it's a beautiful time of the year. I got up this morning. It was great. I got a phone call. I had a little Halloween gift given to me by my wonderful niece, who I bet is listening, and I know she's listening. It's warmer down here, but where she is, it's really cold.
Where does she live?
She lives down here. They're just up in North Conway.
Oh, okay.
They got a lot of snow up there recently. Yeah, we got about an inch or two down here, but they got about 4 or 5 or 6 up there, I think, if not more. But it's been a fun year. It's been one of the busiest years we've had, actually, and I know you guys have been busy.
Yep.
We got a couple minutes here before we switch over. Why don't you introduce yourself to the public?
Oh, my name is Kathy.
And let them know what you do.
I'm Kathy Tammany. I am actually the founder of Pentucket Paranormal. I do that with my children. I help Tom out a lot. He's so kind to let us to join in on many investigations. So that's really awesome. We just recently had an investigation Saturday night. That was fun. And at the Hannah Dustin house, and it was we actually are still reviewing a lot of the material that we got, and hopefully be able to post some of that on my Facebook page, Pentucket Paranormal, as soon as we have some of the results from that. It was a great night, and I really appreciate you, Tom, helping us out and letting us get in there.
No problem. It was a great night, actually. It's always a great night. It's always a great night when all the Arpain family members get together and we have a great time. It'll always be a great night. But Halloween, that's an old holiday. It's not old in this country, though. It only started about the 1950s.
Right.
But it goes back to the pagan era. It goes back prior to even the settlement of this great country of ours. So, we don't know how far it goes, but, 1950 it started. That's relatively a new tradition.
This country alone, the history of this country is new compared to what's the pagan ceremonies. So
right, exactly. We had a lot of great, with the pagan ceremonies, and those go back to the Celtic times, 1300, 1200 BC. So it is what it is. But we started around 1950, and it's been growing every year. Mm-hmm. To the point where as a kid, I had these. They weren't always my favorite, but my brother David did a great job creating new candy or new ideas for candy.
Okay.
So I'm going to ask everybody at home that's tuned in tonight, if you want to try something great, get some candy corn and mix it with mayonnaise and Miracle Whip. That got this in studio, people. Lisa's laughing. We got people laughing on this one.
Some shaking their heads.
But yeah, that's a good one.
Oh boy.
Yum, 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 yum.
Did he force you to eat it?
No.
Oh, okay.
No, it was great eating, though. I got to admit, it was great eating. Halloween is my favorite holiday of the year. I just can't eat a lot of candy anymore.
Right.
That kind of is horrible. Because, you got the Kit Kat bars, you got this, you got everything out there now, and it's
100
fun.
grams. Those are my favorite, the 100 gram.
So, it's a fun time. And we're going to kick it over to Lisa right now. We're kicking over to Lisa. Lisa's been working hard since yesterday. She stayed up till 3 a.m. painting pumpkins, so we're ready to go. So, Lisa, take it away.
Hi, Halloweenies. My name is Lisa, and today we're going to be doing painted and decorated pumpkins. This is a new version of decorating pumpkins. It's a no-cut pumpkin. Last night I painted one of mine green. You can paint them any color you want, blue, green, white, purple. But this one, I have the decorations I have match with the orange, so I'm going to keep this one orange. And I painted this one green, like Frankenstein green. And what you can do is you can get a magic marker and you can draw your face on instead of cutting it out. So you can draw the eyes, the nose, the mouth, and you can do different versions. And I went ahead last night and got this started because we don't have a lot of time. So I made a couple of shortcuts. So the orange one, I started to paint this. I drew out the face and I'm starting to paint in. As we do this show, I'm going to slowly in between you're going to come back to me and I'll proceed and do a little bit more with each face. Let's see if you can see this one good. So, and then we're gonna decorate it. So this is what we're starting. So now on this orange one, I'm going to proceed to paint the eyes. I think I got some black paint on my face. That's all part of the fun of painting. So I'm going to continue to paint the eyes here. See, I proceeded to paint this, and because I'm a messy painter, I got some black on the side, which I didn't realize that I'm throwing the paint around. So I'm going to clean up my mess here. And now I'm going to start on the nose. This one is going to be a little different than the other one. This one's going to be more of a scarier face. Now, I made a different mouth on this one. I didn't do such a big grin like the other one. This one is going to be just a simple line going across. It's a little more hard painting on a round surface, especially when it has little indents on it like pumpkins do. So you can kind of see what I'm doing here. And then this is going to have some accent here instead of teeth, but this is like a big grin. It's a little scary. It's not very scary, but you can make them as fun and as friendly and as scary as you want. I even saw somebody did a cat. They made their pumpkin and they made it look into a cat. And they had cardboard cat ears on the top, sticking out here on the top. It was adorable. Now some people will even put glitter on their pumpkins, and which if I had more time, that's probably what I would have done. I would have put the glitter on the base coat or sprayed this with the glitter, and then I would paint the eyes. and the mouth and the nose. Now, this particular pumpkin, we're going to paint. We painted it, and now we're going to add hair. Now, for the hair, I was able to go to the potty store and get this fun little thing. It has glue already on it. I need glasses because I'm an old lady and my eyes are going. So I'll go with glasses. So, oh, this is actually 2 pieces. Even better. Now, this did not come with the sticky paper. Normally when you buy these little bow things, it has sticky paper on the bottom, but it doesn't. And that's okay because I did bring a glue gun. So we're going to be going to break with me in a minute, and while we're doing that, I'm going to have my glue gun ready. So when we come back, you can see me glue these on. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to glue one of these on one side and one glue it on the, let's see if I can turn it the way so you can see it, on the top here. So it looks like hair. And then we're going to add a witch's hat.
He's snapping at her to give her the 2-minute warning.
So, here's my glue gun. Now, I always liked carving pumpkins, but since I discovered this, I like it better because it's no mess. It's a lot less messier than carving it. I love painting anyway, so painting makes it more fun. So what I got was this. I went to a potty store and I got these cute little party hats. So I'm going to glue this on, and when you come back to me, you'll see that it has the hair. Okay, so when you come back to me, we'll show this with the hair and the hat.
Yep. So,
See you later. See you in a minute.
hey, Paul, welcome. How we doing? Happy Halloween.
Oh, and to you too, Tom.
It's been a fun day so far. But
Well, that's good to hear.
we're getting along pretty well. Hey, we had some snow for Halloween. I haven't seen that in years.
Oh, I know it. Yeah, I'm down in Rhode Island, but northern Rhode Island, we still got about 4 inches. Rather annoyed me. I have a brand new snowblower that I haven't put together yet or learned how to use, so it was kind of annoying. But it was pretty. It's all going to melt tomorrow, I think.
Right. Well, let me just give you. So right now we got Paulino on the line because and he's been doing the paranormal for not many years, 5 years total. Oh, I'm sorry, Paul. I flipped the numbers in my head. 50 years this year. Congratulations.
Well, thank you very much. It can be a dubious honor.
No, it's a great honor. I don't know anybody that's been in the field for 50 years.
Well, I really am grateful for your kind words, and it's been a very, very exciting time.
So what made you get started 50 years ago? I wasn't even born 50 years ago.
Yeah, I know. Keep reminding me. Yeah, it's it was something that started really when I was 7, and that was a lot longer than 50 years ago. And I had to do with the death of my father, and I simply wondered, where is my father? And my parents were of different religions, but we were raised Roman Catholics, and my brother was a priest starting in 1963, and I entered the seminary myself in 1967. at the age of 14 when you could still do that. And my issue was, I was interested in being a priest, but I also was interested in ghosts too. Not a lot, but enough to try and study it. And there was one lonely book in the seminary library, and it was Herbert Thurston's Ghosts and Poltergeists, an English priest who'd written it many years before, and he talked about Borley Rectory and all that business. And I was interested in that, and I also was interested in the idea that maybe the idea of purgatory, the Roman Catholic doctrine that, you get stuck in there if you're not good enough to go to heaven or not bad enough to go to hell. And I wondered if ghosts that we hear about in all cultures, all throughout history, might have been maybe our souls in purgatory, right? And, to me, that it didn't work out that way, but, at the time, it sounded like a good idea. So my first case, which I started researching 50 years ago this month, was in northeast Connecticut, which is a very well-known, lovely place to go. It's very quiet. But there's several abandoned villages there, and this was one of them. It was known, I found out, as the Village of Voices. And because you would go in there and hear all these things happening that nobody was there, seemingly. So that was my first field case. And that's really how I got started. And my idea was maybe these people are in purgatory. Well, they didn't. When all was said and done, they didn't seem to be dead at all. Never mind any kind of purgatory. And I started to wonder if the old ideas really were correct. So right out of the gate in 1970 and 71 and 72, I began to question the old ideas of whether we're really dealing with dead people or not. Maybe it was something far more interesting. So that's how I got started.
Wow, that was long ago. And then you got a little lucky being in the seminary. You got to help people. And then you met some people along the way that were famous. What was your first big case?
Well, probably the very first. Well, first of all, in 1972, Lorraine Warren of Ed Lorraine Warren read something I'd written on this purgatory idea, and she thought that was just fabulous. They were very Roman Catholic, or at least they believed they were. It was kind of a pop theology that really, there were problems with it from a real theology point of view. But in any case, they thought that was great. That's how I got in with them. And we started to work on a couple of cases. And Ed would hand me cases that he didn't have time for or wasn't too interested in. But that all changed in November of 74. Now, in 73, I'd been involved with a priest at the seminary and I was 20 years old. It was very unusual. I'm still surprised that he got me involved, but he was the Catholic chaplain at a nearby psychiatric hospital known as St. Lawrence State Hospital in upstate New York, right on the St. Lawrence River and the Canadian border. What he was really doing was keeping an eye on things there when doctors would report that stuff would start flying off shelves on the other side of a patient's room. Things that would not be attributable to a person's psychiatric issues, something that would be outside them. And, of course, it led to a number of exorcisms being performed there, and I assisted at 10 of those. And that was a pretty wild time, I must say, and it really kind of shook me up because I didn't think that was right either. I thought that there was far more to this than the ideas of something possessing somebody and coming in with a ritual and being able to throw it out, which didn't always work. And I thought there was a lot more to it, and kind of joined the odd feelings I had from this case in Concord, Connecticut, where things just didn't seem to obey the old rules either. So anyway, when I got involved with the Warrens, that all changed in 1974 when I was home from the seminary for vacation, Thanksgiving vacation that year. And it was in November, and I just headed down to, on the previous Sunday, the 24th of November, 74, down to the Warrens' house in Monroe, Connecticut. I lived in Connecticut, too. And they were just going to have a quiet dinner. Lorraine was a tremendous cook, so you didn't say no. So on the way down, I had a flat tire, and that made me just in time for what was going to happen. When I pulled up to their house, kind of woodsy area in the end of a cul-de-sac, Lorraine came flying out the door and said, "Are you in a high spiritual state right now?" And actually, I was in a terrible spiritual state because I was trying to decide whether to leave the Roman Catholic Church and join the Orthodox Church. So naturally, I said, "Yeah, I'm good. What's going on?" So down we went. There were four of us all together: Ed Lorraine, myself, and Father Bill Charbonneau. We went down in separate cars to this house on Lindley Street in Bridgeport, Connecticut. A little tiny place. I said, what could be going on in there? But boy, I found out quickly. I walked in, the place was crawling with police officers and reporters and a couple of neighbors, and the place was a complete disaster. The woman of the house, Laura Gooden, took my arm and said, the thing, she called it the thing, had wheeled the little girl's baby carriage around the house and torn clothes out of drawers and thrown it in the baby carriage. And I could see all this. Things in the bathroom were constantly, falling off shelves. And it was just, a complete circus. I'd never seen anything like this before. So the first thing, among the things that happened to me, we were there for the better part of 3 days. Father Charbonneau had to keep coming and going to serve his parish. But the idea was that these were demons, and we were going to get permission from the Bishop of Bridgeport to perform an exorcism. That would have been, of course, Father Charbonneau's job. And, of course, that permission never came, so we sort of just hung around recording what was going on. The big thing that happened to me was, one of the things anyway, was Sunday night of that day. We shoot away some of the riffraff there, and I was sitting at the kitchen table with Lorraine, and there was a reporter from a radio station who was recording an interview with Ed, so he got this whole thing on tape. And there was a police officer, too. All of a sudden, Lorraine kind of let out a little yip, and I watched as a second-degree burn blister, one of those white blisters, began to form on her hand. And there was no heat source. Nobody was smoking or anything. It just appeared. And you can hear me in the background of the tape in my youthful voice saying, "Oh, there's a blister forming." And Ed wanted her to leave that house immediately because he said that he was afraid spontaneous human combustion, a rather disconcerting phenomenon that may be known to some of your listeners, where people just sort of burst into flames from the inside and are consumed. Usually.
That doesn't sound good.
No, you could have better ends to your day than that. So Lorraine refused to leave, and so we stayed in there. Nothing further of that nature happened that I saw anyway. The real, height of the event for me was on the following night, Monday the 25th, and Lorraine and Ed had gone off to do some TV show. And it's ironic. After they threw me out of the seminary in 1977 for researching the paranormal, I went into journalism. And the last thing I would do was call in the press. But that was kind of the first thing Ed did. So in any case, we were there. They weren't there. I was there with the family, which of course the Mrs. Gooden, Mr. Gooden, and the little girl Marcy. That was the whole family. And there was a reporter, John Sopko from the Bridgeport Post, and there was a neighbor. That was it. And we were in the living room, and I was in the corner playing Monopoly with Marcy. For some reason, that was her favorite game. All of a sudden, we felt something happening. In the kitchen, you could see almost a smoky or gauzy substance forming. And Mr. Gooden went into the kitchen, and he said it's going to happen again. He was familiar with this from long experience, and he began all of a sudden to start chanting in Latin in this beautiful bass voice that I had never heard before. It was his. It wasn't somebody else's voice, but I'd never heard him sing before. And it was quite. And then at the same time, four of these entities came down the hallway. And the Latin thing, later on, he said he'd been an altar boy. Well, so was I. I had studied this stuff for 5 years in order to sing it or speak it like that in the seminary. So these four things came down the hallway, and when I lecture, you've seen this yourself, Tom. I think at some of your events, at a map of the house with these bird-like creatures kind of coming down the hallway from the girl's bedroom, and then into the living room where we were. And they didn't look like that. They felt like that when I had a physical confrontation with them, with one of them anyway. And you could see almost as these kind of smoky or gauzy structures coming down the hallway. One of them stood in front of me. I had put the little girl behind me because I knew it was after her. And I knew, I just felt that it was threatening, and I pushed against it just out of instinct, like you would some kind of threat like that. And I was totally flummoxed because it had a physical structure. These are supposed to be spirits. They're supposed to be demons. A spirit by its very definition is, disembodied, doesn't have a body, doesn't have any physical structure, supposedly. Well, this thing did, and it felt, the structure felt almost bird-like. And it totally, there's nothing scarier than, the phenomena are bad enough, but when your belief system is blown away, that's what's really scary. Because that's all you really have to cling to, especially when you face things like this that are, you've only heard horror stories about.
Right.
So anyway, I was flummoxed. I got angry at it. I was fearful. And this is where I learned you don't do that in the face of these things because they're not demons, they're parasites. And we had to kind of coin the term by the late 70s that these things would feed upon those emotions. And the thing got around me and threw Marcy across the room. And at that point, I felt like the whole place was going to explode because they were just feeding on our fear. So I pulled everybody out of the house. It was I got a cold night in November, and it started to sleet. And fortunately, the police had blocked off that block of Lindley Street before, and so we didn't walk out in the middle of a crowd. There were 2,000 to 3,000 people gathered out. That's the police estimate. 2,000 to 3,000 people gathered outside this house at any one time after this story got out in the press that day, and the Sunday, of course, the day before that too. So things I had to. We didn't have cell phones or anything in those days. I had to run next door to use the telephone to call the Warrens to ask them to come back because I didn't know what to do. And something followed me, knocked on the door after I walked in. I mean, this stuff just didn't end. So they got back into the city, and things had calmed down after we left, which kind of indicated to me that once the human element is removed, once the human batteries, so to speak, are removed, you have, the things kind of calm down. So hence the idea that maybe it's people that are haunted more than places are. So that's another story. But that was probably the biggest case. The next day, we had to get some sleep. We had to get something to eat. So I decided to drive back to my home in East Hartford on Route 84. And I was in my 1968 Ford Fairlane, and I turned on WABC radio in New York, which is ironic because I was on that station the other night and talking about this. And they said that the police had declared the whole thing to be a hoax. I said, whoa, what? Am I missing something here? And of course, it was not a hoax, but the city was tied up in knots because of the traffic. And I mean, you should have seen the traffic just driving by this house. Never mind the crowds.
I bet the traffic was ridiculous.
It was ludicrous. It took the Warrens an hour to get back into the city on Monday night, and they only live 10 miles away.
Wow.
But the police superintendent Walsh had apparently sent his men in as soon as they saw us leave, sat the family down and said, "This is it. This has to stop." The kid did it, and that was it. And they intimidated the people, the Gooden family, and they agreed to just say this is what happened, at least for that day. So I ended up back at we were supposed to be back at the house at 2:00 in the afternoon. Mrs. Gooden and Marcy had hugged me and made me promise to come back. But I walk up there at 2:00 and there was a policeman at the door, and Mrs. Gooden comes out and says, "Officer, throw him off our property." So they threw me the heck out. I went back to the Warrens where there was we were trying to regroup, and there were calls coming in from the media as far away as Australia and Canada and every place else, Britain, and so we never did get back into the house, but Ed and I kind of went on the radio for the next 2 nights and kind of battled back and forth with the police. And finally, in January, the family went on and said it was not a hoax. And Ed put it rather well, I think, when he said that Superintendent Walsh not only made fools out of us, he made fools out of his own men who filed police reports, copies of which I have, that talk about the things that they saw in that house, the refrigerator floating. And I was with a couple of police when that happened myself. Things falling off the wall and hitting people. It's all in the police reports. So Walsh just says, well, there are no ghosts in Bridgeport, and I understand that. I get it that he had to clear up the city, but that you don't do it by lies. So that was kind of a biggie, and the case kind of died away. I mean, the Warrens talked about it in their lectures, and I did too, until 2014, when Bill Hall, William J. Hall, wrote, who was a young lad at the time, and remembers the crowds, wrote a book about this. He looked me up, and he looked up the surviving witnesses, and, who were by the 2014 were, a lot of retired police officers in their 80s. And he put together the book, The World's Most Haunted House, which has now kind of taken off, and now there's talk of a movie and all this other stuff. So I'm trying to find somebody, so that was probably the biggest case I was ever involved with with the Warrens.
Right. Well, that's a great story, and you've told that a few times, and it's always chilling to listen to that, even though I've heard that story a million times because I've known you for a million years.
Just about.
But we're running up a good time right now, so we got a few minutes. You got a few minutes. You got about
13 minutes.
13 minutes or so. You want to quickly talk about? Some of the stuff you've done in quote the triangle, but I know you don't call it a triangle, but most people that listening now know it is the Bridgewater, the Bennington Triangle, the Ossipee Triangle, but you've spent a lot of times in other triangles. What do you call them? You get about 10 minutes on that, so we'll wrap up with your interesting outlook on the triangle, because I've had some interesting things and information come in on the stuff I've been working on the Bridgewater Triangle, which I'll talk to you one day about off the air. But what do you think about those areas?
Sure. Well, we call them. We do refer to them as triangles, but that's just a sort of a tool, a research tool, to sort of get you into a geographical location to start working on the larger flap area, as we call it. Now, my son Ben and I. Ben's been with me since he was 13 years old working in this. Now he's 28. And we had literally had to come up with a whole new vocabulary and invent terms just to talk about these concepts. And in my last book, Dancing Past the Graveyard, there's a glossary in the front with all these terms in it. So it began when I would research a house that was having issues. A family would call me in, and they had this. And I said, gee, I wonder, if this really is all there is to it. And I would go out in the yard, and very often there would be some activities outside that you could pick up or not pick up, or just even sense. And I found that if you could talk to the neighbors, which wasn't always possible, you would find that they were having issues of some kind too. Push came to shove, and I started running into people who were seeing UFOs, and I was supposed to be on a ghost case. There were cases in rural areas where people would report seeing cryptids, Bigfoot, or things that didn't even have names that I was aware of. And this turned into research in flap areas. That, coupled with the late 1970s, when I was running into people who were seeing ghosts of people who hadn't died yet, or ghosts of themselves, the doppelganger thing, or phantom buildings, or even whole villages. I actually interviewed people two couples in Scotland that it happened to, and it was really a whole new kind of first day of school, as I would say. There were principles that I think needed to be addressed that hadn't been. So the whole flap area thing really took off in 2005 when we were contacted by a woman in Torrington, Connecticut, who had read my 2002 book, Footsteps in the Attic. And she said that this idea of quantum mechanics, parallel worlds, rather than just a material world and a spirit world, really does account for the time slips, the strange things they were seeing, and things of this kind. For example, there would be these boxy structures, some kind of life forms that I don't know what they were, bouncing by the window outside the house. There would be legs hanging from the ceiling, walking as if on a surface that wasn't there in our world. There were in the basement where they had once lived. There were the great grandparents of the current owner of the house. The 6 generations had lived in this house, an old, beautiful old 1793 farmhouse. And we had to convince them that their great-great-granddaughter was not a ghost, or that we were not ghosts haunting them. because they apparently were going about their regular lives, bodies and all, in a normal time, many decades ago. And they saw us as we often would see them through the, as a physicist, we put it through the membrane that is charged with plasma, and you're naturally going to see a glowing figure or a strange, kind of it's something that doesn't look human and that looks like a spirit through these membranes. So that is how we kind of got started in that. And the more we would talk to other people in the area, because these folks had been around had a lot of friends, and they would talk to us, we found all kinds of things going on. UFO sightings, Bigfoot sightings, a lot of shadow people sightings in homes, time slips, other kinds of cryptids, strange creatures, and things of this kind, all kinds of orb phenomena. We ourselves had a UFO sighting down behind Mohawk Mountain in that area. And what was interesting was that we started to find military activity going on. In 2009 and 2010, all kinds of military activities taking place, ground troop movements, and they didn't care who knew it. A lot of strange air activity, black helicopters, things of this kind. And we tracked it down to an old farm in Goshen, Connecticut, next to Torrington, and these Litchfield, these areas where this triangle seemed to be centered. And it was an old broken down farm, no activity of any kind. But then within the next 2 years, the place was totally rebuilt. A lot of excavation took place. A lot of strange military-type vehicles coming and going. And we finally managed to get... property records are public record. You should be able to find those. We had an awful time finding this. We found out that the U.S. Army owned the land across the road for a communications project, supposedly, with a huge antenna, all these wires that ran over to this farm. And we found out that the farm was owned by the children of the owner of an aerospace company. The whole family owned the aerospace company, big defense contractor. And and they paid like $7 million for this place. I mean, yeah, it is a nice view, but $7 million beans? I mean, come on. So everything kind of fell into place. We have a lot of eyes on this place now. I was in the military myself and rubbed elbows with the intelligence community for a while, and I still had a contact, and actually two. And one of them checked out that address and said, back off. In other words, there's something going on, so don't be trespassing when you're liable to get arrested or shot. So we're still working on that. We have a lot of eyes on it. And why would they be in these flat areas? Well, our opinion is that wouldn't we love to weaponize the paranormal? Wouldn't we love to harness, if this multiverse thing is true, harness the ability to go back and forth into other times, even though they're simultaneous with ours, and all these questions. And in every single, we've worked on 6 flap areas so far. And they go on for years, these cases. And we've run into the military or something that looks like the military every single time. In 2009, 2010, in this Connecticut triangle, there were people would be walking their dogs. They'd come to the edge of their property, and they'd run into a Humvee with people either in black or in camo, armed, M16s, and say, sir or ma'am, you can't go this way. You got to turn around and go back. Firmly telling them that. Mark D'Antonio, a mutual friend of ours, who is MUFON's director of video and photo analysis for the whole country, and who is a legitimate astronomer and scientist, said that he grew up in that area, and he said, and he's helping us on this case. But he said one of his old friends was fishing at a brook where he fished all his life. Humvee pulls up. These armed guys, get out and say you can't fish here anymore. So this is not going on right now, but I mean there was some kind of activity that was really strange in the Bridgewater Triangle, which is a lot closer to home for many of the listeners here. Maybe about 20 miles from us. I'm in Rhode Island. We were there in 2010, and a lot of strange things were happening. And we got some strange photographs that day of what appeared to be little people in the woods. And Ben was commenting that we had not run into the military yet. Well, just as we turned a corner on this old dirt road in the middle of nowhere, there were all these unmarked utility trucks lined up with all these military types in sunglasses kind of watching us go by. There were no utilities that I could see, on this road. So what was that about? So
that's interesting. That's interesting, Paul. What I'm going to do is, we're running short on time because we got the next guest coming in soon.
Yeah.
In about a minute and a half. I'm going to have you back on the regular show we do in Lawrence, and we're going to have you and another guest on, and we're going to spend an hour on the Bridgewater Triangle, if not longer.
Well, that sounds cool.
All right. I want to thank you for calling in tonight all the way from beautiful Rhode Island, and I will be talking to you soon, my friend. Thank you very much. Have a great evening.
Thanks for having me, Tom.
Yeah, no problem. Bye-bye. Bye. That was the legendary Paulino. Paul's a great friend, a great investigator, and he's been doing this a long time. A lot of great information.
That was awesome.
Just imagine the military's involved in the paranormal. That's
shocking.
That's shocking.
Shocking.
That is totally shocking. I've investigated the bridge. We've investigated the Bridgewater Triangle. I've spent a lot of time in the Ossipee Triangle. Unluckily, though, I've not seen any military vehicles. I'm dying to see one of these days.
I think there's quite a few triangles in the air.
There are, yeah.
And I think some still that even haven't been investigated.
Right. I mean, Ossipee is one I'm working heavily on, and now I got that going basically from right out in your backyard almost all the way to Jackson, New Hampshire, and west of Keene. That's quite the triangle.
Yeah, it is. It is.
So that's what's going on with that. That's been pretty interesting at this point. We are waiting. We have another guest calling in a few minutes, and her name's Jen. She's from the Maine Paranormal Society. And she's going to give us a different twist on the paranormal. And then we're going to shoot back to Lisa around 7:20. I'm just going to road the road map out if everything goes as planned. Lisa will continue to talk about what she's done to those pumpkins. And let me tell you, they're coming along very well. They're very scary. I would have nightmares over these pumpkins. Total nightmares over these pumpkins. So we're just waiting on Jen. Yeah, but as far as triangles are concerned, Kathy, we have a lot of them in the area.
Oh, 1,000%.
I mean, you have the Bridgewater. Oh. We got our next guest. Hey, Jen, how we doing? Welcome to the show.
Hello.
How you doing?
Good.
Can you tune down the back because we're getting reverb? I guess you're watching us live, huh?
Yeah.
Thanks for tuning in.
I shouldn't have.
That's all right. Why? What's up?
I can't believe you have me follow Paul.
Why?
Oh, now I feel like a little ant peon.
Nah. Paul is a legend. You're a legend, too, so don't worry about it. So,
oh, gosh, stop.
So how long have you been doing the paranormal for, Jen?
Well, I've been doing it for 12 years now.
Well, that's a long time.
Yep.
Anything over 5 years in this field is a long time.
Well, it's certainly longer than I thought I was going to be doing it, yes.
So how'd you get involved in this wonderful field of the paranormal?
Well, I had some unnerving experiences, and I, by chance, by channel surfing, came across ghost hunters, and it just blew my mind that people were doing this, and I had to watch a couple of episodes to kind of understand that it's a scientific method. They're trying to get evidence, and I found a TAPS family team here in Maine. They were doing a presentation at the Dyer Library in Saco, and I went and I stood at the back of the room, and I was in a cold sweat and in a total panic, and I saw that they spent a lot of money on equipment. They spend a lot of time, energy, and effort into this, and I'm like, they really believe. And so once the presentation was over, I asked the lead investigator, you know a lot of people, so how can you make this, introduce me to somebody who can make this go away? And he laughed, and he said that's just really not how it happens. And he invited me to join the team so that they could educate me and desensitize me in a way to it. and I've been here ever since.
Wow, that's a long time. Now I know everybody has their rules. Obviously, every team's different, but we don't talk about cases per se. But did you have any experience on a case that you can talk about?
We had a case, and I'm gonna talk about our lead, Luke. One of our team rules, biggest rule is respect. We're going into somebody else's house. We're investigating, past lives that we're not really in a place to judge. So we go in with respect. And Luke, this was his first investigation with us. He had just come from a TAPS boot camp, so he was feeling pretty good about himself, and he's raring to go. So we get up there, and we're by Little Machias Bay, and we hear the history of the land that, the Redcoats sailed into the bay, and we're trying to process these ships and these men from this other country, and, a time of war and stuff, and, it could possibly be these souls that we're encountering. And so during the investigation, most of us are pretty mellow, but Luke is like, hey, you guys lost the war, and we usually don't provoke, and sometimes you just kind of let things ride and see how it works out.
I bet that didn't ride too well.
It was fantastic for me. Didn't work out so well for Luke. We were upstairs in a bedroom, and I was sitting on the end of the bed. He was across the room from me, right by the door, and I could see in the doorway, head and shoulders, full body apparition, probably the size of a man, because it filled the doorway. And now I'm not one to say, oh, look, there's something, because I don't want the moment interrupted. I want to see what's going to happen. And Luke shot up out of that chair, cursing a blue streak, saying he had just gotten slapped. And, of course, because I kind of saw the whole picture, was just laughing so hard. So hard. To his credit, he has flashlight, he's looking in the corner, and he's like, something must have fallen, what could have fallen? He's looking for the little Scooby door, what door opened up and somebody slapped me? And he finally turned around and looked at me and he said, did you see anything? And all of a sudden I stopped laughing, so I'm like, crap, I did. I'm like, oh, yeah. And he goes, and you didn't tell me? And I'm like, well, I didn't want to ruin the moment. So
it was a great moment for you, but not a great moment for him, huh?
Well, and it really kind of drove home that, even if this wasn't a redcoat that we were dealing with, it was still, be respectful of, anybody that's left their land to defend their land, or even the folks that were here defending the land. It still may be harsh to hear some, young whippersnapper saying, hey, you think you lost the war, it's time to go home. And I think it was just an authoritative hand saying, simmer down. So
interesting.
It was a great experience to really drive home respect is the number one rule. This is how we conduct ourselves. So.
Well, that's a good thing. Now, have you guys done any public locations that have written up they're written up in paranormal books, so you can actually talk about it? Say Fort Kent, because it's been I find Fort Kent in about 8 different paranormal books and online.
Actually, to tell the truth, we very rarely do public places.
Oh, okay.
The majority of our cases are private residences that we can't talk about.
Right.
There's a couple of locations that we actually can talk about, that we do have the homeowner permission. And, one of them was our case. It was, 6 hours up north, one way for us, where Luke got slapped.
You have any other ones you can talk about?
Yep. Along with, in the case up north, along with Luke getting slapped, we actually caught the voice of an adult female, an adult male, a child, and an infant crying. Like a whole family unit existing in that residence along with our clients. We have another one a little bit closer to home.
Wait a minute. Before so Luke got slapped in the face, And then you have
Well,
a family crying. Was
slapped
that a
on the
British
shoulder.
output at one time? Did the British soldiers take that house? Because they did that a lot. And they held families.
The house wasn't there at the time, but they do have the foundations where the Kwanzaa huts were.
Ah, okay. So that would explain everything. That ties that right into one another. Excellent.
Right.
All right, sorry for cutting you off there. I just wanted to make sure the listeners at home could understand,
Yep.
because you had a very interesting story, and then you had the family crying and the British soldier slapping Luke going, well, my background in history, that sounds like something that one of the homes that the British soldiers had taken over. So.
And the description that we got from the client was someone was seeing, he would call it the red man. And so we don't know if he had a red coat, if he had maybe red hair and a beard, or if he had blood on him. We don't know. The description was very generic about the red man.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, that's what happens a lot. I sometimes wish even our own clients, and same with you, Kathy, I bet, when people see these things, to try to get better descriptions, because it only helps out the investigation.
It does, but it's like the last thing that they're thinking of. They're freaked out, and we're all like, "Whoa! Did you notice this? Did you notice that?" And they're just looking at you like you're, you've just grew a second nose. They're like, "Why would I look at that?" And that's kind of we don't do blessings, cleansings, or removals. We really try to get our client to coexist with this activity, and changing the perspective of our clients to say, you just have an extended family.
Right.
So now that client, exists, toys move, objects move, and she'll just look over and say, put that away when you're done. And that's it. So.
Well, that's good news. That's good for you guys. That helps because, as paranormal investigators, and it doesn't matter what theory you live by, because it's great that everybody lives by their own theories from their own research. I've never, thought one theory was better than the next, but the best theory out there is trying to get the client to live with the ghost, because, I will cleanse the house out, but when we leave, you leave, the ghost stays there, usually, unless it tacks on to one of you guys. We've had that happen a couple times, but...
Yep.
For the most part, the ghost stays there. You leave, and the client still, your client, our client, Kathy, any client's still gonna have to deal with that spirit.
Right. Exactly. And the thing about it is to empower them to be able to handle the situation means that if they move from that residence to another one, they're not going to end up in the same situation that they were before.
Or that spirit following them. Or
with new activity with different spirits. At least they know that they can handle this situation.
Right. So then, is there another case you want to talk about? Because that was interesting.
Well, I did have one. Nothing follows us home. We really, as a team, no matter what we believe, we all have different belief systems. Without even consciously saying, okay, now we got to do this, we all turn around and look at the residents before we leave and say, thank you for letting us visit. You need to stay here. And then we leave. So this one time I did have, I think, something follow me. I swear to God, she was so polite, she stayed outside the house. But I woke up to a sound, and, it was just me and the cat, and I looked at the cat's sound asleep, and I'm like, I think someone was talking, which, lesson learned, once I leave an investigation, I keep a recorder running when I'm home after the investigation. So I'm like, okay, whatever. So I roll back over, I fall back asleep, and again, I'm woken up, I think, by talking, and when I sit up, I can smell smoke. And I was on a fire department for many years, and that particular smell of a structure fire, and I'm like, this is a fire, not a fire pit, So I'm like, oh my God. And so I can hear water hitting the side of the house. But this is January, it's minus 20 degrees outside. I don't see any strobe lights I don't hear any sirens. I don't hear anything else except for the water hitting the house, and the smoke was really, really heavy. So I'm like, all right, time to go. I grabbed the cat, headed for the door. As soon as I hit the bedroom doorway, everything was gone. And I'm just like, okay, so put the poor cat down, and I must have walked that apartment probably for a good 20 minutes. I didn't smell anything. I couldn't hear the noise anymore. I really think because we had been to a house where there was a reported fire where, there might have been deaths from the fire. And I honestly believe that this spirit was trying to tell me her story.
Interesting.
But without a name, without her coming up and introducing herself to me, I still can't place her in history.
Mm-hmm.
So
what I always do is after a case, I always call the team that was on that case the day after, see how they slept, if they had any weird nightmares, any dreams. If I had any dreams, then I'd write that down into the case file. Because sometimes that's the best time to get the best information is right after you leave.
Yep.
Because those memory imprints are in your brain. So that might be, that's what I do. We pretty much call every team member that was on that case and go, how'd you sleep last night?
No, right, yeah, definitely.
So that might be something interesting. I don't know if that's, protocol for you guys, but it may help down the road. It may not help down the road, but it might be interesting to see, at least from a internal study, what happens to you guys after cases. And then compare notes with other teams after cases. And find out if this is if the night of a case you actually can't sleep because you actually had a dream or nightmare, night terror. Or, some people have this way of channeling themselves while they sleep and channeling themselves back in time.
Yep.
So there's a lot of things we can look at. I mean, we don't have to give our case names away, but we certainly can all sit down at the end of a month or two after doing that on cases and go, wow, you had a case that ABC happened, you had a case ABC happened, and then we came back at night, went to bed next morning, we had almost the same type of night, we don't call them nightmares, night terrors, channeling. It'd be interesting to see if that's another type of phenomena that happens in this field.
Well, I think that's one of the things that's lacking is we're all gung ho about researching and investigating these spirits, but we're not paying attention to the souls that are active, us, each other, and how we're impacting the environment and how it's impacting us. So that is definitely something that we actually, I talk with my backup case manager, Nicole, and we actually talk about other investigators and say, did you see this? Did you see that? Or, did you hear so-and-so mention that the room actually feels heavy when that investigator swears they don't feel anything? So we're starting to raise the awareness of we're actually investigating the investigators as we're investigating the case.
Right, because sometimes you get I've had cases where I've actually gone home, fell asleep, and everything that we couldn't figure out in the case happened in my dream.
Yep.
Puzzles were put together. Now, that doesn't mean that, sometimes you can interpret dreams the wrong way. But when I call up other team members and they say, well, last night I woke up and there was a lady dying in a house fire. Okay. We look at the case log, and the case said there was a house fire there, but they don't know how many people actually died in it.
Right.
Then I have a dream of the lady dying in bed engulfed in flames. So now you go, okay, well, that's tidied up a little bit. And then you have a dream that, you wake up to an explosion first. Now we know what caused the fire. There had to be some type of explosion.
Yep.
And then you can go back and redo this and relook at cases and see what you missed. So when you do the final analysis to the client, because the most important thing is not so much the investigator, but the client.
Yes, absolutely.
And that's the problem with a lot of these teams.
Yep.
They don't look at it that way.
Well, it was really nice to be able to go, because going back to the library and trying to research the deaths in that building. The record keeping just didn't exist at the time that we're looking at.
No.
And to go back and tell the client about my personal experience and say, I believe you. I believe that somebody passed away in a fire here. I had this experience. I'm on your side. I mean, it's a personal experience, and we're very cautious about that. But in this instance, it gave the homeowner, peace of mind that she wasn't going completely crazy.
Right.
Because we could kind of tell, like you said, we could kind of tell the same story from the personal experiences we were both sharing.
That's why I think personal experiences, and that's why you got to have a team you can trust. Personal experiences help a lot, especially when you're dealing with older stuff. That there's not great record keeping on.
Right.
One of my favorite things is, and you might even have came across this, and maybe you can talk about it, maybe you can't. There was a house up in Hampton Falls, New Hampshire. We never got on the case because they didn't want investigators there. But did I investigate? Yes, I did. They went through a local historical society up there. They wanted some information. Well, we figured out when the house was built. We figured out when the owner died. I came across the deed of the house.
Yep.
The deed of the house simply said this land is never to be built on, and it's to stay in family in perpetuity. Now, what's interesting about old deeds, do you know how they were signed?
How?
Okay, if you ever find an old deed on the house and you see this big red blodget,
Yep.
that's called a blood print. That's someone's blood.
Oh, wow.
On their thumbprint. That's what that is. That's being a background historian, and you know that stuff.
Yep.
So when the deed is signed like that, and 11 generations later, they sell off the backland, they develop it, and now the house has been up for sale. I left Exeter about 5 years ago. In the 12 years I worked there, it was up for sale 10 times.
Oh, goodness.
And they never wanted an investigator in there. I know where the house is. I occasionally drive by it just to see if it's still up for sale. And recently it was up for sale again. But what's interesting about this house is, and this is something else to look at, Jen, when you're doing things. The new house out back that had the most activity, if you went to the Historical Society, you find there was a barn. Yep. And the guy died, the original owner, whose fingerprint is on that deed, died in December. Now, you know how cold it is in New England in December, right?
Oh, yes.
So there's only two places they're going to bury you in the 1700s. They're either going to put you in a holding crypt, like I have at Hilldale Cemetery, or in your barn.
Right.
So guess where the barn was, where that new house was out back.
Yep.
So you could come across that while you're investigating, too. So keep an eye out for that. That's always interesting.
Oh, absolutely.
Now, do you have anything else you'd like to share with us? Because those first two were very interesting.
Well, we had kind of on the personal experiences. It was a 200-year-old farmhouse that we were investigating. We were actually looking for a female. When we first walked into the building, and this is another life lesson number 2, as soon as you get out of your vehicle, turn your recorders on. We all walked into the house, and as we're getting the tour, we all hear a horse's feet on a wooden floor. We hear kind of like this snorting, and we all looked at each other because we all heard it, and we're all like, who has a recorder on? And not one of us had a recorder. Ooh. So, but we all heard the horse in this barn setting. And so we're looking for this female. So kind of, you get a little frustrated because you're not finding what the homeowner wants you to find. So again, we already had an idea in our head what we were looking for, which is lesson number 3. Don't get any preconceived notions when you walk in. And so I'm sitting there in the living room by myself. Everybody's upstairs looking for this female. And I just feel this male presence in my face, like really close. And this is where you go from where a science-based team to this really exists, and I can't back it up because I really feel there's a man in my face. And I said out loud, okay, you need to back up. I know you're here. I can feel you. I know you're male. If you can tell me your name, I can address you with respect. And the reply came back, my name is Randall.
Nice.
And there's a picture, there's a photograph on the wall that they got, and the original owner of the house was the female we were looking for. The second owner of that home is in a baby stroller in that picture, and his name is Randall.
Interesting.
So Randall holds a piece in my heart because that was the first time on an investigation that I said out loud, I feel something here. So I felt like I was kind of going out on a limb, and it was really nice to have that evidence to back up my personal experience.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I bet it was.
I've got one other time where still, personal experience, but still had a little bit of historical documentation to back it up. We were in another home, older home, and I kept seeing this white shadow, probably about 2 feet off the ground, going back and forth, and I'm just like, okay, guys, nobody else saw it. But I'm like, I keep seeing this white shadow. I'm like, I don't know what the heck that is. And finally I said, I swear to God, this looks like a dog. I swear to God, there's a dog spirit here. And of course, they're all looking at me like I'm nuts. I'm used to it. I'm fine with it. Whatever. So the next day when we talked with the client, I said, look, I swear to God, there was this white dog. I swear to God. And she pulls out a picture of her grandfather, Pa, with a white dog standing next to him, and said that was Tippy the dog.
That's a great name for a dog. Tippy?
Tippy the dog, and he had
Tippy
this
the dog.
he had this white fluffy tail that would wag back and forth, and I'm like, that's what I saw. That's completely what I saw.
That's awesome.
That's great. So
Yeah.
another great personal experience for you.
Yeah, and I was so relieved. Trust me, I was so relieved when she pulled out that picture of Tippy the dog. I'm like, thank God I really felt like, thank God I'm not going nuts. There's a dog.
Well, that's good because, it could get a little crazy out there.
Well, when you're, and that's the adventure that I'm personally going on as an investigator, is I want to be science-based, I want to be evidence-based, but people have abilities.
Correct.
And the abilities, the longer you do this, the harder it is to stay that science-based, because science hasn't caught up to what some of us are experiencing.
No, you're right about that. Science has not caught up to
No.
the paranormal experience, and I don't think it ever will either, because I think the brain and the body is a lot smarter than science.
Oh, yeah. Oh, well, and here's the thing, is being a Reiki practitioner, being an energy healer, I know how important that energy is. It's as important as our blood in our body.
Right.
Right.
And there's really how does science measure or examine somebody's energy? That's where all the information actually is. That's where the spirit, the soul, that's where the personality is in that energy.
Right. This is Kathy. Hi.
Kathy.
But there isn't really there's no piece of equipment that is ever really going to truly be able to capture that.
No.
I mean, and if at some point it's light years away.
Yes.
And you're right. We rely so heavily on our intuition that I think that's why a lot of times people think, oh, you're crazy. These people are crazy. It's no, we're not crazy, but we have no way to prove it to you.
Well, and that's it. That's it. I mean,
and until
I've seen
they experience it themselves.
Yep.
I mean, I had a 35 millimeter camera, right? Here's a great experience at a historical site. So we went out to Dogtown. And I can channel energy, so I channeled the spirit of this lady, right? So there's a picture of me going into channeling. The next picture is a lady with a sailor's hat on, and then the next picture is me coming out.
Yep.
I mean, I didn't transform into a female, but where did this female come from on the photograph?
Right. Yep.
You know, and you could clearly tell it's a female sailor. Next time I show it, next time I see you, I got my picture book in the trunk. Remind me, I'll show you those pictures.
Yeah, that
And
would be
some of the other
great.
pictures
Those
we've
are
got.
the opportunities of a lifetime when you can capture that stuff, and they don't have they aren't as, you know, a lot of time when we see things on TV, it's great, but you know, those opportunities, those captures, they aren't as frequent as we hope they'd be.
No, no.
You know, I mean, and and that's why I'm always like, it's just not that you know, you walk in, where's the bad wiring that's setting off the EMF that's triggering the nausea or the feeling of being watched. And you're right, scientifically we have to disprove so much just to prove just a little bit.
Well, and that's the thing, is Hollywood is not doing us a favor.
No.
You know, our clients are so overstimulated that you know, we're almost fighting a losing battle at this point, and they don't understand that one little tiny response just sends us over the moon.
Right.
We're like, oh my
Right.
God, you know, I got a yes or I got a no. And they're looking for, you know, stuff being flung, and they're looking for big things to happen. And it's like, you know, we go to your house and we go for 3 hours or 4 hours or 5 hours. That is a snapshot
Right.
of what this whole place has gone through. You know, and that's why we try to go back 3 or 4 times to try to, you know, get more of this, because it's elusive. It's, you know, we've
Right.
got to spend hours doing this. And then when you spend hours investigating, you've got to spend the same amount of hours reviewing the evidence.
Actually, it's actually double time.
You're absolutely right. And then you get 1 or 2 things, and the joy, I mean, for us as investigators, is like,
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
we were fortunate the other night, just real quick, we happened to go to the Hannah Dustin house. We were using the SB7, and we asked who was here, and clear as day, Kevin came out.
Yep.
My daughter-in-law is with us. Was with us. Her brother passed away a few years ago, and his name was Kevin.
Oh, nice.
And for her, I think it was a great experience
Yeah.
to kind of have that validation, because at times she has even said she almost feels like he's with her.
Yep.
So and the thing is, it's true. Spirits do follow people, and sometimes when you go to to do an investigation, it might be the spirit of somebody who's with someone that came. And
that's the thing, is as a Reiki practitioner, I am more and more and more feeling their past relatives or even their ancestors, even sometimes guides, are with them.
Right, exactly.
And if they're in turmoil, if they have something going, and that's the thing, you got to check in with your investigators where they're at. If they've had a death in the family, if they've had a divorce, a breakup, or if they've had something going on, you got to understand where they're at when they're going into that investigation, because these guides, these ancestors, they're going to be with them.
There's that protective element coming in.
Right.
At that point.
And that's another question I have, is how are we contaminating these investigations with
1000%.
our spirits?
Agreed. And I know at times, even when I've had moments of having that, just moments in my life where things are a little in a bit of upheaval, I have felt my grandmother. I know
Yep.
she's there. She's comforted me.
Yep.
I have to be very careful to keep that, it's kind of like a business and personal relationship.
Yes.
I've got to keep that personal side, my personal side, out of an investigation.
Yes.
Because I don't. You're right. Contaminating the investigation, that's huge. And a lot of us who have abilities, we're sensitive. We have to be conscious of that.
Well, I've even had an instance where somebody had an attachment from a living person.
Huh.
I've heard of that.
So
Those aren't
yeah,
fun
that's
at all. Those
What's that?
Those aren't fun to deal with at all.
Well, it was a process of making them aware that that's, the person's not dead, but they can still be attached to you,
Right.
and it can still be unhealthy. It was a process of going, yes, this can happen, and yes, even though this is a loved one, you need to shut that door.
Right.
So to investigate the investigators, for me as a Reiki practitioner and an investigator, is starting to become more and more important as things go on.
No, I agree with you 110% on that one. We're almost to the end of this segment, Jen. Well, I'll have you back on this show where we can have you on for at least a half an hour or an hour, so we can really get into this stuff. But I want to thank you for coming on tonight.
It was really nice talking to you.
Oh, it was great talking to you guys. Thank you so
No
much
problem.
for having me on.
Thank you. Have a great evening.
Yeah, you too.
All righty. Another great lesson learned today about the paranormal from Maine Ghost Hunters. We're actually running a good time.
We're
heading
very
back
well.
to Lisa now. Lisa's going to catch us up what she's been doing. Ooh, I'm getting scared. I'm going to be nightmares all night long. Take it away, Lisa.
So during the break, I finished the 2 pumpkins. I put their hats on, and I put their hair on, which is basically ribbon from the party store. I think they're adorable. And now
So,
they're
Lisa,
ready
what'd
to
you do
decorate.
finish them off?
I painted them. All I did was paint them. I used I used craft paint, any craft paint you can use. I didn't shellac them. I just left the paint. I just painted them. And then I used my glue gun to put the hair and the hat on. And I cheated a little bit. I used safety pins to secure them while I was waiting for the glue gun to dry. And they're real simple, easy. I think it's much easier than cleaning up all those seeds and dealing with the little fruit flies after. I think they're adorable.
Except for pumpkin seeds.
Oh, yeah.
I do love pumpkin seeds in the oven.
Yes. But you know what? When they start to go bad, you can still cut it and get the pumpkin seeds.
Right.
I wouldn't put these outside, though. These are inside pumpkins or porch pumpkins because I wouldn't trust them in the rain.
No, you wouldn't trust those in the rain. They look great.
They're cute, though. They are
They
cute.
really look awesome. That's fantastic.
Great job on those. And how long would that take somebody to do usually?
Would probably take you about 3 hours. You would paint them, let it dry, and then come back an hour later and finish it.
All righty. Well, Lisa, you did a great job on that.
Thank you. Thank you. They were fun. They were a lot of fun.
So anybody at home, get a pumpkin, get some paint together. I know my niece would enjoy doing that. But I'm going to get her oil paint for Christmas so she can do that with oil paints. Because I know oil paint would last longer.
You know
can put
what?
it
That's what we'll
outside.
do next year.
We'll
We'll do
use
some more
oil
painting.
painting.
Yes. Yes.
That's always fun. So that's another interesting night. We got we just had Lisa finish up her pumpkins. So we're doing well with that, Lisa. So
It was
what
fun.
else do you think kids could do on a night like this since, trick or treating has been,
Well,
put away
this
for the night?
this is what I would do.
Yeah.
I would make, instead of doing an Easter hunt, I would do a Halloween hunt, and you could either have make your own Halloween baskets and hide those and let the kids find it. If it was a nice night and it wasn't snowing, I would have hid candy around the yard, lit some candles, put my Halloween lights out in the yard, and let the kids find their own candy. If it's a cold night like tonight, I would have prepared the baskets for them and hid them in the house. Give the kids, shut off the lights, light some candles, give them flashlights, and let them, and decorate the house and let them find their own baskets. That's what I would have done. And then after that, have some popcorn, hot chocolate, watch some scary movies, some Disney scary movies. And that would have been a fun night, a fun Halloween night.
That sounds like a great night. And tonight is actually very historical, isn't it?
Yes.
We got a blue moon out there for the first time since 1944.
Wow.
I don't think I was born yet. Let me think. I'm trying to think. No, I don't think I was born yet. Oh no, I was born. I'm the only one on the stage that would have been born by then. Maybe in another
In your
two
previous
different
life.
lives.
Another life. Yeah.
Yeah, in the last 2 lives that I lived. So, anything else we could do with the kids, Lisa, before we start on the next segment?
No, I think that is it. I'm out of ideas.
All right. Well, we thank you for coming on, Lisa,
You're
and
welcome.
handling with
it
the
was
kids.
fun. It was a pleasure.
It's always a pleasure to have you on. So the next one we're going to talk to now is Amanda. Hi, how we doing?
Hi, Tom. Good. How are you?
I'm wonderful. You had a nice slow day today on a Halloween day? Oh, look, you're all dressed up for
100%.
Halloween. You look great for Halloween.
Thanks. I had a look I was going for. It was like a theme.
Got the look down perfect.
Thanks.
So, now, how long you been in the paranormal for?
Can you hear me?
In the paranormal,
Yeah.
I mean, I've had experiences since I was a child. Doing anything officially, honestly, for the past couple months helping you out. But I've had experiences my whole life.
Anyone to talk about real quick? Because we got Lisa rushed the project so well, and it came out so well that now we have a little extra time, which is good because now
It
we
went
can
too
get
fast.
now we can keep informing our public of all this stuff that we can do in the paranormal.
It went
which
too
is
fast.
awesome. No, it was great. So
I mean, I definitely, I've had multiple experiences. The ones that kind of have always stuck out is I was not an only child, so my house was always filled with people between me, my sisters, my mom, my dad, and I would hear my name being called all the time. I would just hear Amanda, and I would think it was either my mom, my dad, one of my sisters, once they could talk. And I would go to each of them and I would ask them, did you just call for me? And they would tell me no. And it was just, I never felt scared of the voice or scared of anything like that. And it wasn't something in my head. It was an external voice that I would hear just calling my name. The other thing that kind of sticks out, and this I'm not really quite sure about, but as I'm sure quite a lot of people have been, I was always a little bit scared of my basement growing up, as was my mom. As I got older, we would talk about it. We would talk about the fact that I didn't feel comfortable going down there at night alone, and neither did she. She like I said, as I got older and we talked more about not only my own spirituality but hers too, she would tell me the same things. And then I guess the most major experience I ever had, Tom, was I was probably about 15 or 16 years old, and I didn't have a door to my bedroom. I just had like a sheet hanging there. And every morning my mom would wake me up for school. I didn't have like an alarm clock or anything, and she's a teacher, so she would wake me up for school.
So she was up at 4:30 in the morning.
She was up at 4:30.
And you got to sleep until 6.
Yeah.
Great. I'm familiar with that role.
But she would come and get me up, and knowing that I was a very heavy sleeper, would wake me up. I'd always ask her, "Hey mom, 5 more minutes." And she would wake me up early knowing I was going to ask for 5 more minutes, and she would then go and get ready in the hallway bathroom. And I would be able to see the light from the bathroom and also hear her hairdryer because I didn't have a door. So one night I heard, "Hey Amanda, it's time to get up. It's time to get ready for school." And I was like, 5 more minutes, mom. And she was like, all right, went away. Then I realized, because I'm obviously now half awake, no bathroom light comes on, and there's no hair dryer going. And so later on, my actual mom, I should say, comes to wake me up. I say again, 5 more minutes, and she says, okay, which was very unlike her. And so come to find out, I don't know what it was or who it was, but that was definitely not my mother who had initially come to wake me up. But I remember waking up and seeing a shadow figure on the other side of that curtain that I had as my door.
Yeah, I've had that happen where you think you hear your parents waking you up, and oops, it's not the parents waking you up. It's something else walking through the house, and we don't know what it is. So as you got older, you got involved with the paranormal, and you started playing cards.
I started playing...
Using cards, yes.
In a way, it is playing cards, because that's what they kind of started out as back in the early 1400s. So you're not entirely wrong with saying it that way.
So how do the cards... what's the history of the cards?
Pretty much, like I just said, they started out in about the early 1400s as a set of playing cards. And that was initially the minor arcana, which is the 4 suits. And then shortly thereafter in Italy, they introduced the major arcana. And kind of the difference between the two, at least in any reading I've done, is the major arcana is typically major themes. So for example, most people don't exactly like the death card because they think it heralds, quite obviously as the name would imply, they think it heralds death. And it really doesn't. It generally just heralds some sort of just change, major change, because things in our life have to die, if you will, in order for other things to come to life and come to fruition. And that's just one example. That's good. So there's a lot to it. Some of the suits, like for example, there's 4 suits. Typically it's rods or wands, pentacles, swords, and cups or chalices. As an example, rods or wands are typically more monetary kind of based.
So those are the good ones to get when you want to retire early, right?
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, they all have their own, individual meanings. And just like a regular deck of playing cards, they run through the numbers and then through the face cards. So there's the knight, which would be almost like the, I apologize, I don't play cards very often, but
a jack or a king?
Yep, a jack.
Okay.
And then there's the king and the queen. Just like you would have in any other
deck of cards.
In a regular deck of cards, exactly. I actually brought one of my decks because I do have multiple. I brought my kind of standard deck with me today, just to kind of show you guys what it would be.
How many cards are in that deck? Normally. Does it vary?
No.
Okay.
So typically you have, let's see if I can remember this. I think it's 72 cards in the whole deck. And you have 54, I believe, in the minor arcana, and then the remainder would obviously be the major arcana. My numbers might be off there. I apologize if they are. I'm horrible with numbers and with math. I always have been my whole life.
You're in a good crowd of people because math. Wait a minute.
That's my job.
That's her life. So yeah, no math. Math is very important to some people.
I actually use fractions every day, so I'm that person.
Awesome. If I ever need fractions, I'll come to you.
Yeah, I wouldn't do well with that one at all. Thank you. Fractions.
That's awesome.
That's excellent. All right. We had a little change of plans. That happens on live TV.
Of course.
It does.
It happens in life.
It happens in life, too. So we're going to go an extra couple minutes, and then we're going to pan back to Lisa, and so Lisa could show her creations off one more time, and then we're going to swing back over and bring our next guest in.
Okay.
That's the plan right now. Lisa, you can recap what you did.
Okay.
Give me a couple more minutes, and we're going to recap what you did. We'll swing you back over there. All right. Is there anything else you want to show off that deck of cards? Because that looks like a pretty cool deck of cards.
Yeah, I mean, so this, like I said, is kind of your typical, most of the time it's referred to as the Rider-Waite Tarot. I will show you, if I can find it in here, what my favorite card is, and it's the Queen of Cups. Mostly because I've always felt very connected to her. And yes, I do refer to my cards as though they were people. Yeah.
Oh, there's nothing wrong with that. There's her favorite card.
Here's my favorite one. She's a very mothering card, and she's also a very creative card, which I'm sure, as you can tell, that's not me in the least bit.
Creativity. Let me think about that one for a minute.
But yeah, so she is actually my favorite card because she just
do
resonates.
cards tend to follow people? If that makes sense. Like when you're doing a reading, do primarily the same cards or similar cards come up? I guess that's
It kind of all depends.
Okay. Believe it or not, I've never had a tarot card reading. So that's why it's very curious to me.
It's a great question, but I think it would all depend on what the current, I never exactly know how that's pronounced, but what type of questions they were asking, and if they were always asking the same questions, or if they had, let's say, like a passed on family member or someone who was trying to communicate.
Sure.
That might be an instance where the same card might come up, or if it was, like I said earlier, where the major arcana is more of a theme, like an overarching theme, that might be another instance where those cards may follow somebody.
Yep.
But in my experience, typically, it's not very common that they do.
I was like,
yeah, no, it's a great question.
Well, that was some great answers. Thank you for the history of the cards so people at home can understand what the history is. Because history is important even with the paranormal. Cards, any type of stuff we're working on. History is vitally important in this.
Of course.
So learning the history of cards tonight was excellent. I want to thank you.
Thank you for having me.
We'll have you back on doing card reading here sooner than later because we got a bunch of shows being planned for the new year coming up at the LCAT Studios here in Lawrence. I want to thank everybody's working hard behind the scenes. I want to thank Daniel and the crew. They're doing a great job. So we're going to switch back over to Lisa. And Lisa's going to quickly go back over what she did while we switch off.
So for Halloween, we got a couple of pumpkins. And we did two different versions. One version I did not paint. I left it the beautiful orange, and I made a face with magic marker, and then I painted it with craft paint, any craft paint that you can get at any store, Walmart, anywhere, really, Michael's. Got some craft paint, painted in the eyes, and the nose, and the mouth, and then I went to the potty store, and I got this pretty ribbon for the hair. You can use straw, you can use construction paper and cut it. It's not curly, but you could make sort of like a scarecrow kind of hair if you wanted to do that. You can also make eyebrows, eyelashes. You can even cut out some construction paper and make cute little eyelashes and hot glue it on top of the on top of the eyes to make them pretty. You can get gemstones or sequins and make little decorations on there, whether you do decorations on the eyes, or you could put glitter if you wanted to do that. If I was going to do glitter, I would use craft glue, but something that when it dries, it's clear. Or you can get a spray glue and then lightly put some glitter on. Now this pumpkin I painted with, again, the craft paint, and then once it dried, takes about an hour, sometimes a little bit longer. You might have to use a blow dryer if you're in a hurry, or you can paint it the night before, let it dry overnight, and then the next day, just get a Sharpie and paint the eyes, the nose, the mouth, and then paint it in like I did, the eyes, the little cheeks, and the nose, and the teeth, and the mouth. And then, of course, I got some more ribbon, and I hot glued it on top. And I painted a party hat so it would look like a witch's hat. You can also do these for Thanksgiving and do little pilgrim hats. You don't have to do pumpkins just for Halloween. You can make cute little pilgrims. Now, these are indoor decorations. They're not outside decorations. If you had a covered porch, you could put them outside, but I don't think they would last very long outside in the cold. The paint might chip off.
No, great job, Lisa. Great job.
It was fun.
Lisa, like all my other guests tonight, is a legend. I got legendary paranormal investigators, legendary card readers. Tonight we also had a legendary artist, so thank you, Lisa.
You're welcome.
All righty. We're back on over here, and I want to introduce a longtime friend. I've known her a long time. We've investigated quite a bit. Even with your old team, I investigated. Then you helped me out with Essex County. And then you went away for a little while. You went a long way away. And now you're back in New England.
Yeah.
So I want to introduce Corey. She's an animal communicator.
Well, not just an animal.
No, many other things, but psychic, animal communicator, card reader, you name it, she can do it all. Why, she's a legend too. So animal communication is what we're gonna at least start to talk about
Yeah,
tonight.
that's fine.
So how long you been communicating with animals?
Oh gosh, it's probably been over 15 years, probably.
Wow, that's a long
Yeah.
time. That's longer than I've been alive.
That's not what I heard at the beginning of the show.
No, that's right. I'm the oldest guy on the stage up here. I keep forgetting that sometimes or another. So animals, everyone's brought up, and I respect everybody's ways of beliefs, and I respect every religion out there, because as a paranormal investigator, you've got no choice, because you got to deal with every type of religion out
Yep.
there.
Mm-hmm.
So I grew up one way, but as I got a little bit older, I started believing that, every rock, every tree, every creature has a life to it, a spirit.
So did the Japanese.
So don't the Native Americans, and so don't a lot of the other cultures. And it just like, wow, that tree, that moose. Because the Native Americans, after they shot that moose, or speared it,
Yeah.
they would pray to the moose god.
Mm-hmm.
When it wasn't enough rain, they'd pray to the rain god.
Yeah.
Today, I wish I had prayed to the snow god yesterday, because we didn't need the snow yet.
It's almost all gone though.
But it's almost all gone. Yeah, but it's a little chilly out there tonight.
Yeah, it is. It is. I'm
A
not
little
used to this
chilly
cold
for
weather.
October. Well,
It's still pretty warm in Tokyo
oh,
usually
it is.
around here.
Yeah, but you get snow out there too, didn't you?
Ooh, once in a blue moon.
Oh, we're in a blue moon tonight, so that could happen.
I had to.
That's a good one. Yeah, first blue moon since 1944 on Halloween. We'll probably never see that again. Oh, maybe I will. Maybe I'll see it one more time.
Maybe not in this form.
Yeah, that could be. It could be in another form. Could be in many forms. Or it could be I'm still alive in another 100 years.
Yeah, maybe.
That would make me 144 years old, wouldn't it?
Yeah, hey,
Yeah.
with technology, anything's possible nowadays.
Anything's possible today. But, so you get calls from people who lost their pets,
Yes,
which
I
is tough
do.
enough to deal with when you lose a pet.
Yeah, it's not just, I don't just talk with deceased animals, I talk with living animals as well. I mean, I would say most of my clientele usually have animals that are still alive. But Yeah, I talk with all sorts of animals, wild animals, but more so domesticated animals, people's house pets or horses, cows, chickens. The only animals I don't talk to are snakes and spiders. And that's because I just don't like snakes and spiders.
Oh, you don't like
Snakes and
spiders? Oh, so you'd be like, do that, run? If
Yeah.
you saw one in the basement on Investigation, that kind of reminded me of something happened on TV.
Either
years
that,
ago.
I'd probably tell the people that they need to move or burn the house down. But
And what's wrong with snakes? They're pretty.
oh gosh, no. I'm sorry for all you snake lovers, and I have some friends, really good friends who have snakes, but I just
I have
can't.
a friend from grammar school. Her daughter's got the snake. She's out playing with it every day. It's not that big. It's only about, I think it's about a 10 or 11 footer now.
Oh, yeah, no.
Not
thank
that
you.
big of a snake.
No, thank you. They're right up there with clowns with me.
And
Yeah.
mom, and mom is about, I would say about 5'3", and the daughter's maybe 5'4". Mom's my age. Yeah.
Ooh, thank you. I have talked with frogs though.
Frogs.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, so you talked to Kermit. How's Kermit doing?
Yeah. I actually think the frog's name was Kermit.
Ha!
No, really.
Boy, I hit that one on
Originality right there.
the head. Originality, exactly. So you talk to animal. What do you usually get out of an animal? Say it's an animal that's passed on.
Well,
I know it probably differs from animal to animal.
It does. It does really differ from animal to animal. It also differs upon what their life was like. I've talked with a lot of animals who have been rescue animals. I have been able to confirm and verify with the client about what they know about the past. Because animals are very open, and animals are also on a very higher vibration than human beings. So we, a lot of times, put ourselves as being high, like, high on the food chain and, the boss. And really, we're not. We are so dense with energy sometimes.
Well,
But-
if you go out to Africa and think you're high up on the food chain, you got a big
well,
problem.
I
with-
use food chain as an example,
Right.
but I mean, they're just so much more of a higher vibration than we are. In fact, in order to talk with them, you have to raise your vibration. So it's just a matter of, practicing, quieting yourself, and then getting attuned to it, and then talking. But it really depends on the animal. It's case by case. I can't really talk about anybody's cases because everything is private readings.
Right.
But I'm trying to think if I can
Have you
find
ever
a
been
good
called
one.
in, like on, let's say, a missing animal case?
So missing animals, so I even have my limits, and I don't usually do missing pets because I usually would have to use a pendulum and follow the energy in that physical location.
Okay.
So I usually say, no, I can't do missing pets or missing people type of thing, and it's very emotional too.
I was going to say that it must be very draining emotional.
It is, because when you have somebody who's lost a family member, because that's what, they're not pets, they're family members.
Of course.
And when you're missing a family member, you want as much information as you can get. And unfortunately, when an animal says, well, I'm in a wooded area and there's a gas station nearby, you just described all of America,
Right.
pretty much.
Right. Every
So
corner.
it's very, very difficult, and unless you have real specifics, it's hard to find them unless you're following the energy at that location.
Sure.
So
I'm-
sometimes I try, but then it turns into that the client is always wanting more information, and you can only give what the animal gives you. And I never would make up any type of story to
Correct.
make them feel better. You
Right.
know,
I mean,
it's-
closure is whether it's good or bad.
exactly.
I mean, my license plate is cat lady, so clearly,
Oh.
and at one point I had 7 cats. We're down
Yeah.
to 3, and recently this summer one went missing. But there were indicators that suggested she may not have been feeling well,
Yeah.
and they are, again, like you said, on a different level vibrationally, where they know they're passing. And they
Sometimes,
go and they
yeah.
and a lot of them go off to
Yes,
to
yes,
die.
yeah. When you do have that type of animal who they are older, they know that they're sick, and they do kind of go off because it is. Cats do that a lot because they don't like the messiness that happens.
Right.
To be honest with you, and a lot of them
get very ashamed of going to the bathroom after they pass, that everything just kind of lets loose. And I know it's not really the topic that people want to hear about right now, but some animals don't want their owners there, and some animals do.
Right.
And also I get people who call in and want to know if it's the right time for the animal to pass, if they're doing the right thing, because also euthanasia is a very hard topic for a lot of pet owners.
Yes. It really,
But-
it's almost like you feel like you're playing God.
Yes, yeah,
And that's a
absolutely.
tough call.
Yes, absolutely.
Now,
Right.
do you get called in for people who maybe have had animals that are having some sort of, issues,
Yes,
like psychological or physical, and
Yeah.
do you communicate in that way to find out maybe where it's stemming from?
yeah. So one of my abilities, and it kind of has to start off with my psychic ability before the animal ability. I am able to see things and hear things spiritually. So either in my mind's eye, or I'm hearing my voice or other voices.
Sure.
And when I connect with an animal, I can hear their voice, or I can see images that they give me, or they can take things from my past to show me as still images to kind of put pieces together like a jigsaw puzzle. And those are kind of how I can communicate with them. And there are times where also I feel their ailments.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to use horses, for example, because that's my actual huge clientele. Is I
Okay.
talk to a lot of horses. So shout out to barrel racers out there. So I had to. I got a lot of people watching right now, and I know most of them are barrel
That's
racers. I'll communicate with an animal, and if their rider is having issues with them, or if a horse might be bucking or rearing or biting, or something's going on, and if it's not a mental issue or stress, it might be physical. So I can scan the body of the animal. I know it sounds weird and kind of out there, but
actually it doesn't.
I can scan their body, and they'll give me that feeling on my body, and I can kind of say, I can't diagnose anything because I'm not a vet tech or anything.
Right.
But I can give some indication of, all right, well, this is around where it is, and sure enough, they'll go to the vets, they'll get whatever done, and they'll send me back a message and saying, oh my God, it was right where you said it was. And I'm like, I didn't say it, your horse did,
Right,
or
right.
your cat did, or your dog did, or your rabbit, or whatever it might be.
That's really cool.
But I also thought that all this was hogwash.
Oh, you did.
Yeah, I did. Even though I was psychically attuned and I was seeing dead people all my life and angels, basically all my life, I didn't think that animals could talk or really had kind of like the same type of emotions or wants or needs as humans did.
Right.
Until I went to a psychic fair, and my sister actually wanted her pet read. And I said, sure, it's your money. You're going to pay this person, go for it. And what she said, I'm going to use the word flabbergasted by it, because this was something that nobody would have even known about.
Right. Right.
And so shout out again, I have to shout out Betty Comerford. So she made me into a believer. And, she read one of my pets afterwards, and it was kind of like I took one of her classes. And then a month later of attuning myself and quieting myself and raising my vibration, I had said hello to my cat one morning, and all of a sudden it was like, hello, and I'm like,
And it is a
What?
skill that you have to find too.
it is, and everybody has this skill. So everybody can talk to, everybody can see ghosts, everybody can see angels,
Right,
or
and I think
whatever.
it's where you want to go with the ability that you've been given.
Yes,
And
absolutely.
like you said, I mean, if
and
somebody
boundaries and
if somebody thinks it's phooey,
Yeah.
then they're never going to get to the level where it becomes something that they embrace.
Yes.
And you have to embrace the ability.
exactly, yeah. And a lot of people would say that what I do is devil worshipping, or and to each their own, definitely. But I'm a born again Christian.
My dad's
And
a pastor.
So it's I believe what I believe, but I don't shoot anybody down if they're pagan or if they're coming
Right,
from a different
right.
religion. The only people that I shoot down are the people who start off a message to me as, well, I'm a skeptic, but I just want to try this. And I'm like, well, you're not open right now, so
Right.
maybe you should think of, and I do that. I do say sometimes to people, maybe you should think about this a little bit more, do a little bit more research on me, go to my website, look a little bit about what I'm about, and then if you really feel strongly that you want this done, then I'll do it. But they're not going to be top on the list if you're coming up saying, I'm a skeptic, but.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Those are my favorite people to deal with. I love skeptics.
I've made many people believers, though. And for some reason, a lot of husbands I've made into believers.
That's funny.
And they have that,
Right.
like, with the ghost stuff. A
Well,
lot
not-
of men
right.
are like, I don't know
have to
about
agree
this.
with you. I think men are more skeptical of things than women, and
Yeah.
I don't know whether it's a maternal thing, or something innate in a female opposed to a male.
I wonder. I have a feeling that might be it.
No, my favorite skeptics, you know, I did a talk here in Lawrence one day and I was talking about, haunted objects. And this couple came in, and right off the get-go, I knew I was going to have an interesting night. And actually, you can see this on one of the old, it was prior to me coming to the station. I was doing a talk in Lawrence, and Elcat had filmed it. And this couple goes, so you cleanse our houses. What is your religious beliefs? Well, number one, religious beliefs plays a big role in the paranormal. But me pushing my Catholic beliefs on an atheist and my Catholic views on an atheist to go handle a demon isn't going to work too well. You have somebody who's a Native American that believes that everything has got a spirit. The religious beliefs aren't going to work. So you got to be open to everybody. Everybody's got a different belief. You got to respect everybody's belief. So those are my favorite. Another one was a great incident that happened in Dracut. Now, then we'll get back to talking. I was brought into the Dracut Historical Society about 11 years ago to do a near Halloween, talk, and small place, and they wanted to do glass divination. So we went to the front room of the front parlor room of the museum. We all know about the parlor room right at home. That's where that's where the wakes took place. So we went to the front parlor room, and in the basement of your house, if the house is old enough, that's where the embalming took place, just so you know. We went to the front parlor room, and we got the glass going. There was me and 3 or 4 older ladies, and they were getting it. And this guy goes, "It's you running the glass." I go, "Okay." So I said, "Spirit, I'm going to let the glass go. We're going to let these ladies work the glass. Can you keep making the glass spin in a circle?" I lift my hand. Glass is still going. He's out the door. You hear him screech out of the parking lot. Then you hear lights turn on because right next door was the police station.
Oh, jeez.
So that took care of that skeptic. He a little scared and left. So you said communicating with animals is a psychic. So you started off as a psychic, and then you found the animal communication.
Yes.
So I ask every psychic this, but I already know the answer. How long you been a psychic for?
Since I was 5 or 6 years old.
Oh, most people say since they were born.
Well, no, I was not born with this ability. I actually had a near-death experience.
Ooh.
I drowned in a lake when I was either 5 or 6 years old. I don't really have any recollection. I can't say it now.
Recollection.
Of it. My dad, who was a police officer in Haverhill, who has since passed, but he saved me, brought me back, and since then I had seen things, heard things. And then, you'd go into your parents' bedroom at night saying, there's somebody standing in my room, Mom or Dad, and they'd just be like, it's just your imagination. So when I was younger, it actually shut down. And then when I became adolescent, probably hormones happening, and all of a sudden I start seeing all these things again and hearing all these things. And I went to the doctors and, wanted to get some, my head checked out type of thing, and they said, oh, it's just stress, and you just don't worry about it. And I did my own research, and this is when we had dial-up. So I go on AOL.
Oh,
I
yeah,
go on
I remember
Alta
those
Vista.
days.
That's how far back I go. Alta Vista, and I typed in some of my symptoms, and the first page that came up was, "Are you psychic?" And I had a good laugh. I'm like, because I didn't believe in any of this stuff, whatever. And I started reading that page, and a lot of things that the page was saying, it was just nailing things on the head. And I was like, oh my gosh, I wonder. And then I found Circles of Wisdom, which was
Yeah.
in Andover. And there was another group that was doing. Since then,
Well, what's interesting is you saw Seeing Things as a kid.
yeah.
But what's interesting is, from where you grew up, I could take a football cemetery with
Yeah,
it.
yeah, and
Oh, that's
actually,
Haunted
yeah.
Hilldale Cemetery.
Yeah, yeah, I love that cemetery. It's very beautiful. But I remember the first real ghost that I remember seeing was at the bottom of that hill off of Hilldale, and it looked to me like a Frankenstein monster. Very tall, very gory looking, and I was outside on my swing set, just swinging away by myself, and the I'm just going to say the big tall guy started walking up the hill, and I was getting scared, so I closed my eyes. I say, all right, just keep pumping, and if I go up higher, it'll go away. And then I'd slow down, I'd open my eyes, and he'd be gone. And then it would repair again and start coming up the hill again. And that happened like maybe 3 times until finally I said, okay, I'm going to pump as high as I can, jump off the swing set, and run up into my house. And that was the first and last time I ever saw him. But that was... To this day, I still remember his image very clearly.
And then, of course, we have my second favorite cemetery in Haven.
Oh, which is my first. Talk about
which is this little cemetery set in. I got to get this right for the people at home that aren't familiar with Haven. It's set on this beautiful road. They can barely put 2 cars down it. I know one guy's listening from his house right now, and it's got a haunted bridge on one side and a suicide pond on the other side, written in Whittier land, and it's called the Children of Israel Burial Ground. I don't know anybody that didn't have an experience. I know you didn't have anything over there.
Oh
now,
yeah,
did you?
no, never. And it's funny because the differences are so bizarre. You had like more negative stuff happen where I have always had positivity there. And my very first A-class EVP that scared the poop out of me. And I was just starting doing EVPs, and it's very alarming sometimes when you have your headphones on and you hear nothing except your static. And I had said, did you let me take your picture? And click, yes, click. I was like, oh my god. And I completely freaked out, and I was like, all right, calm down.
On the other hand, I got one of my best EVPs out of there too. It just simply said, Get out. Yeah, in a very negative voice.
Never been there, so now.
Yeah, that's quite a little interest. And then, like I said, on one side of it is the Whittier Haunted Bridge, and on the other side of it is Whittier Suicide Pond. So it's snuggled.
Yeah, but so sorry, I got a
Right
little
in the
sidetracked
middle of
off of
That's
animal
okay.
communication.
Now, he said you came back from Japan. Were you there doing the same work, or?
Yes, I was. Well, not really. I was more like housewife there, but I
Okay.
did start up doing, offering my services, and I was actually giving workshops about animal communication and psychic awareness in Japanese.
Oh, wow.
And that was difficult. I'd much rather do it in my native language. But
I
was
forgot to
doing
mention that
workshops.
she speaks a couple different dialects of Japanese, if I remember
Couple
correctly.
different dialects. No, just one.
Oh, was it Chinese you spoke?
No, just Japanese
Oh,
and
okay. I have
English.
you confused.
Do you find the Japanese are very receptive to? I always feel as if that culture in itself is very receptive to it. That circle of life, spirituality.
Well, it definitely depends on the religion, and the Buddhist religion, which is pretty much the major religion in Japan, everything has a spirit. Your cell phone, this lamp, this tablecloth, the toilet.
Okay.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Okay.
So everything has a spirit, and that's why I said, oh, sounds like the Japanese. So I believe it is the Buddhist. It could be Shintoism. Forgive me if I'm wrong, but it's either Shintoism or Buddhism that
Okay.
they believe everything has a spirit or like their own god to it.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I know that I know their spirituality is.
Yeah.
You know,
Well, they're not really practicing though. So
Well,
there's a lot that they don't really practice. They do the the New Year's comes and they all
Correct.
go to the shrine, but it's not like every Sunday you go to church type of
Okay.
thing with Protestant or Catholics.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's kind of like, yeah, we're Buddhist, but we don't practice it.
All right. So getting back to animal communication,
sorry.
because we're running, we're starting to catch back up a little bit on this. I don't mind going a little off kilt, but I just want to make sure people at home know. So I know everything you do is definitely private, but have you actually gotten calls from clients? You can this can be a quickly yes or no one, wanting to know if their deceased animal has passed, I'm not going to say happily, but in a way that now the animal is in a better place than it was on this realm, because like a human being, animals' bodies this week do break down. I mean, they're not going to live forever.
Yes.
So do you ever get a call going, now that Chauncey's gone or Fluffy's gone, are they in a better place than they were on this plane?
Absolutely, yes. I do get calls that are on both spectrums, actually, that you have a pet who is now at peace and is comfortable and they're not feeling pain. Obviously, they don't have the body, so no one would feel pain. But animals that go up to heaven and stay up in heaven and come down to visit their owners sometimes because they have a choice. No animal gets stuck on earth like some spirits would get stuck. They have a choice whether or not they want to go up and stay in heaven and come down and visit, or stay by their owner's side and visit heaven. And actually, again, it's private stuff, but I'll give you an example of 2 clients this week that I talked to. One of their animals does not want to go up into heaven, doesn't want anything to do with it. They went through their transition phase after they passed physical body. Went up and looked around and said, yeah, this isn't for me, I'm going back down. And would stay until and at least they're saying they're staying until their owner passes.
Okay.
And then I've had the other animals who are like, yeah, I'm up in heaven, this is great, I'm grazing in this paddock, and yeah, I'll wait for you when you get to the pearly gates, type of thing. Or I come back and I visit here and there. But I mean, the other thing you have to remember is when an animal passes, just like human, your capsule, your body is gone, so you're not feeling the pain that you had when you were alive. And when you're up in heaven, it's nothing but peace and happiness, and there's no anger, there's no missing, there's no mourning. It's when they come back down to this earth realm where they start to feel the lower energy of earth, or I don't want to say of earth because earth doesn't have low energy, but to this plane. They feel the sadness and the mourning. No pain because there's no body.
Correct.
But
correct.
they do feel
But they
like,
know that that owner is maybe suffering or having, still feels sadness.
Yes,
and understands that, and that's, I would guess, would be part of the reason
Absolutely.
why they would stay.
yes, absolutely.
comfort.
Yep. And again, it's comforting for them too, and it's
Yes.
the other animals that might be present at a place can see them, and they can interact and they can play.
I have no doubt
Yeah.
that I mean, I've seen where we had a dog that refused to go into the basement of a house we lived in. That house had it had burned to the ground. A grandfather and 2 children had passed in the house years ago. And my dog would not go in that basement. It was something that prevented him from
they
going
have
there.
a sixth sense like you wouldn't even imagine. We're not even
Far,
near.
I was going to say
we're
far
not even
better than what we.
near
Yeah.
what they can do.
Now, have you ever just maybe been somewhere and been like, oh, there's a cat?
Yeah, they do come up to me. So I could just
say
be
hello?
walking and then I'm like, don't, don't. Yeah, that happens quite frequently. But the same thing with deceased people. I'm like, nope, you don't see me. I don't see you.
That happens to my son a lot.
Yeah,
So that's
yeah.
why.
So
We're running a few
It's-
minutes.
it's-
Just hold on, all right?
it's just they
This
just
is
kinda-
live show here. This is what happens live show.
Yeah,
Right.
no problem.
This is what happens when we go live.
I'm sorry, I'm talking too much.
No, you're fine, just the
No, but
way
if
you are.
somebody is waiting,
No,
I don't
no,
want to
no,
take
no,
up
no.
anybody
We've got-
else's time.
We got a
And
few more
that's-
minutes.
It's funny because my daughter-in-law, my dogs are acting weird. So I went over to her house. We sat and chatted, and I looked quick, and I'm like, that was a cat.
Yeah.
And she said, I knew it. She said, I knew it. My dogs have been acting strange, not aggressive, almost like there's something else here.
Yep.
And just out of the corner of my eye went, you have a cat.
Yep.
The spirit of a cat
Yep.
here.
Yeah, I believe it. Because
and-
I've heard that from animals as well.
and it's just
That
like
they
there's
see
somebody
other
out
things.
here.
Yeah. And then another thing with animals too is they're not always seeing spirits of other animals. So if you're cats especially and dogs just going like this all of a sudden and just like following something, they're not always following a ghost or a spirit of an animal. They have fairies. It's almost like our guardian angels. We have angels. They have elemental angels, which are called fairies.
Okay.
So they play with their fairies a lot of the time.
Oh, like
So-
Tacento.
Tacento, what's that?
One of the most famous fairies of this area, they helped Hannah Dustin out of Derry.
Oh, I didn't
Tacento
know
Road
that.
up in Derry, New Hampshire, yeah.
Oh,
Quite an interesting little story about Tacento.
never heard of that before.
Oh, yeah, because Hannah had stopped at Beaver Lake.
Yeah.
It's not really known that she stopped. It's in the history books, but they don't have the big signs like they do in other communities.
Yeah.
But yeah, there was a ferry called Tacento, and there's a road up in Derry called Tacento. It's actually right near the office parks up in Derry. Not in Derry, sorry. Yeah, Derry, New Hampshire. I'm right, Derry, New
Oh,
Hampshire.
that's pretty cool.
So yeah, no, I just wanted to that was pretty cool itself.
Yeah, yeah.
So we know fairies do exist and elementals exist, and animals like humans can actually sense these things.
Yes, yes.
I'm going to leave you with one more question.
Okay.
Then we're going to get into the Bridgewater Triangle with.
I have no idea what that is, so
No, I
that's
bet
not my
you don't.
segment.
No. So there are plenty of outwardly animals out there, like the Dover Demon. Ever hear of that one?
No.
No?
No.
We're going to be talking about that in a few minutes.
Okay.
And other things like Pudgewuckies. You ever hear about that?
No.
Okay.
You're getting a little out of
A
my
little out of
realm.
the way.
Bigfoot.
I was going to
Bigfoot.
say,
Like a
we're
mammal.
getting into that
Okay.
crypto
Yeah, how about
telling stuff,
Bigfoot?
huh?
Ever tried to talk to a Bigfoot?
No, I've never come across one.
Oh.
That's
If you'd like to book my ticket to Scotland, though, I'll see if I can talk with
Loch
Nessie.
Ness.
Loch Ness, yes. They just found him on
You
sonar
send me
again.
to Scotland, and I'll try to find Nessie.
Yeah, no, we had that on there. He actually was seen just recently, Loch Ness again. In, was it Ness? Yeah, it was
Yep, it
Loch
was
Ness.
Nessie.
Yeah, twice in the last less than a month.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
They found him on sonar.
Oh, wow.
To her.
To her. We're not sure what it is. It's a he or a her. But it is something. So if somebody's at home and their animal is, they want to talk to their deceased loved pet.
Not just deceased.
Not just deceased. Okay. Their pet that maybe is feeling ill and they want to see what's wrong with the pet.
Yeah, even just to
Or just
talk.
in general.
Just to
Or
talk.
just to
yeah.
talk.
Yeah.
Because there's not many animal. There's only you and one other animal. There's not many animal communicators in this region, actually.
And
There's
I
only
haven't
one or
kept
two
up
of
to
you.
date because, being in Japan, I've been so away from the psychic circle. I don't know who's out there. So even when I'm booked up and people say, well, can you recommend somebody else? And I like to spread the love, hey, if I knew somebody, I would definitely send somebody, but I don't know anybody that does it anymore.
Right. No, there's very few and far between.
Yeah.
But that must bring comfort to the client, though. That you probably could agree with me on when they.
There have been a couple of cases where it hasn't. And
that's sad.
if you have time for this quick story, I'll tell
Yeah.
it. If you don't have
Yeah.
time, though, it's all right. Because I do feel like I can say this story because
That's
the client is not even a client. It does revolve around horses. I had somebody who was calling about a Mustang, and it was one of those Mustang makeover Mustangs that you just get, and they're wild, coming right out of the pen, and you have to train it up, and you win a competition type of thing. And she was having a really, really rough time with this one mare, which is a female horse, just to let you know. She was having a really hard time with this mare, and the woman and the mare were very, very headstrong, and all the horse was looking for was some respect, as being the same level as this person, not even the owner, the trainer. And she just was like, okay, yeah, I'll respect her, but she has to listen to me, and she has to know that I'm the boss. And the mayor was just like, you didn't hear anything that I just said, did you? So it was just boom, boom, boom. And then it started coming like shooting the messenger over here. And I'm like, you could cut the tension.
Oh, wow,
You know, you
that's
could
cool.
just cut the tension with a knife. And I was just like, I don't think this is going to go anywhere. And just, you know, hey, good luck. And it didn't work out, but
11.
it's that kind of thing.
And that's, I think, too. I mean, sometimes it's just kind of like people. Two people can't be in the same room together.
Exactly. But, so, I mean, I have had cases like that, few and far between.
Well, that's
I can
good.
count them on my hand.
That's good.
But for the most part,
'Cause
everybody
that must be
is,
draining for you anyhow.
It is, because you don't ever want to kind of, I'm not trying to have an argument with a client, but I have to say what the animal is saying
Right.
and feeling, or else I'm not doing any service or justice
No.
to the animal. And that's really what I'm focusing on when I'm doing animal communication.
All right, I want to thank you for coming on. We'll have you back on one of the hour-long shows we do normally.
Yeah, not a problem.
It'll be a fun time. I want to thank Curry for coming down.
Thank you.
She made it all the way back from Japan. Thank you for flying all the way
Yeah, I
back.
still do
for
the
this.
bowing. I
Yeah,
still do the
that's
mask.
fine. That's
this
fine.
isn't because
That's
of
okay.
COVID. This is just how we do things
Right.
in Japan.
Not a big thank you very much.
Thank
All
you.
right, thank you. Pleasure talking to you guys.
Yes. Our next guest is on the phone. Kristen, you still there?
Yes.
Hello? Oh, I think we lost her. Hello? Nope. Hi, how you doing?
Here. Greetings from the triangle.
Greetings from the triangle. Hold on 1 second, because we got some greeting issues going on here. Okay, I think we got it now.
All right.
Thank you for greetings from the triangle. We'll be switching over. So, you've been researching this is Kristen Evans. She's been researching the Bridgewater Triangle for how long?
About 12 years now.
12 years. Wow, that's a long time, isn't it?
Yep. It's a vast subject.
Yes, it is. And how big is the triangle, do we think?
Well, the official map is around 200 square miles and about 17 towns.
Yeah.
But there's a large belief that it extends beyond the borders of the official map.
I agree with you on that one. So what is your opinion? Instead of 200 square miles and 17 towns, I actually agree it's a lot bigger than that. We've had this discussion. But I'm going to, since you're the expert down there and I'm still the learner, what do you think goes on? How big do you think it is? Let's start there.
If I had to guess, like, where a more accurate map would be, I would say it was more like a swath that came from Boston to Narragansett. So, from, like, the original Mass Bay Colony to Plymouth Colony and where Rhode Island was settled back in the day, I would say are the hot spots.
Oh, wow, that's pretty big. That's huge. That's very big, actually. So, what have you found down there?
Personally, I haven't not found anything paranormal here.
Okay.
I can't think of anything paranormal that hasn't shown its face around here.
Yeah.
We have ghosts, poltergeists, animals that don't belong. We have Bigfoot sightings, Pukwudgie sightings, time slips, haunted forest, you name it, it's here. It's definitely one of the world's most strangest places.
All right. One of my favorite things are the animals that don't belong. Let's talk about that for a few minutes.
All right,
the animals
let's do
that
it.
don't belong. So what
That's one of my favorite subjects, too.
So what are the animals down there that don't belong?
Well, cat sightings, large cat sightings, panthers, mountain lions, historically don't belong here. Cow moose in Hockomock Swamp. Moose really don't belong in Massachusetts, but they're here.
They found moose down at the Hawk? Wow.
Yeah, I think 2014 hunters were finding evidence in the swamp of cow moose, but nobody believed them, and then one got hit on Route 104. So
They went, oops, I guess
yeah,
they are
it was
here.
true. I'd have to say, like the more recent animals that don't belong are aquatic animals, and they seem to appear in the Taunton River.
Ooh, aquatic
So
animals
let's say
in
in
the Taunton
the last
River.
6 years we've had a beluga whale in the Taunton River,
Yeah.
a basking shark, dolphins, and 2 baby seals.
Wow.
And the baby seals, actually, this is a really interesting story. They showed up. 2 different species of baby seals showed up in 2 different Bridgewater Triangle towns in the span of 2 weeks in 2004. And both times they appeared on someone's lawn.
And
One
how
was a
far
harp
from the
seal,
water?
and one was a harbor seal. They were about 25 miles from the ocean, up
Wow.
the river. So they were really confused. So you have to wonder, like, is it some kind of energy that's confusing these animals that run on sonar and that's pulling them up?
Yeah,
But,
that's
that-
interesting. That is real interesting down there.
Yeah, very interesting. And like I said, they were both babies, but one was a harp seal and one was a harbor seal. One was in Middleborough, one was in East Bridgewater. Like I said, in the span of 2 weeks. And you know what? That's like not uncommon in the Bridgewater Triangle for similar events to be grouped together, like in a rash of sightings. A similar thing happened with alligators. We've had quite a few alligator sightings here. Not just sightings. I mean, like they've been captured or caught, so it's like proven. But this all happened like, I think it was 2005, but again, in the span of 6 months, so there was about 7 different sightings in Bridgewater Triangle towns of alligators. And not just baby ones, like one was 5 feet long. That was in Abington. You wouldn't expect that.
Abington,
somebody-
there was an aquatic in Abington?
An alligator.
An alligator.
Did it belong to someone's pet, or did it just show up?
They
out
have
of
no
nowhere?
idea. A woman that had moved to Abington from Florida, who was, used to seeing alligators, was having coffee. She lived on the water in Abington, a little pond at Island Grove, and she looked out the window and she went, "Oh my God, I just saw an alligator!" And she told everyone. Nobody would believe her. The strange thing about that sighting is they never caught the alligator. And it's a really small pond. They never caught it.
Oh, must
So
have ran
what
away.
happened to it, I don't know. The other ones, I think they caught all of the other ones.
This is Kathy Tammany. I'm with Pentucket Paranormal. I'm hosting the show with Tom. So
Hi, Kathy.
Hi. So I have a question for you. The alligators, or even
Yep.
any of the animals, were they all within a relatively the radius themselves within a similar radius? All found close together.
If you took out Abington, yeah, they were pretty much close together. Middleborough, Rehoboth, like down that end
Okay.
of the triangle.
Yep.
Abington is like the northern point,
Right.
and it's right next to a couple of cities, so it's it's a very strange story
Yeah, I was
about
gonna
this
say
one.
because I can I have it up on my screen because when I found out somebody was going to be on about it, I'm like, ooh, this is so exciting. And I noted because you'll laugh, but I remember years ago I had to drive somebody home to Bridgewater, and I will tell you, I felt like my sense of direction, just even in that area, was thrown off. If that even makes sense.
No, it totally makes sense.
Like just there was whether there was just like this pulse or something that kind of messed with my internal radar. It took me almost an hour just to find my way back home.
Yeah.
Or out of that area. I just felt like I was going in circles. And I don't know if that has anything to do with it, but you wonder about strange underground pulses or anything like that might be that might have higher frequencies, either certain times of the year that would create this kind of sonar for these animals. Then they all show up there almost as if it's some sort of a beacon. I guess that's
Yeah. No, I definitely think there's something to the geology of the Bridgewater Triangle. I think it's there's a lot of stones that hold energy.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think you're definitely onto something. I wish I could find a pattern for certain times of the year because I've looked.
Okay.
And I've never... things definitely heat up everywhere at certain times, but I have not been able to find any kind of pattern to it.
Okay. But I will tell you, it definitely, it put my, and I have a great sense of direction, and the fact that I could not find my way out of there was, it baffled me. It really baffled me.
I wonder what part of Bridgewater it was.
Oh, I wish I knew it. I mean, this is going back now, oh goodness, 2006. So it was 14 years ago.
There's an area of Bridgewater around the prison and the state hospital that has a really, really strange energy. I'm wondering if you were around there because that could easily happen.
I was near the prison. That much I knew.
Okay, there you go. Summer Street is not only was it in a Native American village at one time, it has a lot of bizarre energy. To this day, people are seeing Bigfoot there, all kinds of things, ghosts, poltergeist activities.
And
this is really interesting. There used to be a lot of houses up there, but when they built the prison, because of eminent domain, they took out most of the houses, but a few remain, and there's no one that lives there that doesn't have bizarre experiences all the time.
Yeah, and I actually at the time lived in Chelmsford, so it was a friend from school giving them college, giving them a ride home. We had gotten together after, so many years of being out of school, and it was just bizarre that I could not find, I dropped him off and could not figure out how to get out of there. I just felt like I was going in circles. Very strange.
Well, my first experience with the Bridgewater Triangle, before I even knew it had a name or anything, was back in the 80s. I was 18, and like you, it happened in Bridgewater, and I dropped a friend off, and I needed to get gas. And she told me where the gas station was, but I went the wrong way. And I really was on empty. And I was like, oh my God, what am I going to do? This is back in the 80s. No cell phones. These roads were dark. I was like, what am I going to do? So kept driving, trying to find the gas station. And I just got myself into a more rural area. I drove for about 40 minutes. And I got to the very, very end of Route 18. I went, oh my God, I'm so turned around. Mm-hmm. And I said, if I turn around here and I continue, I know that will take me to the town next to me. So I found my way home. But this is one of the instances where, like, good and bad can happen in the Bridgewater Triangle. Because I should not have made it home. I had no gas in my car.
Right.
Now we're talking about an hour and a half later. I literally coasted into my driveway, and my car went into the driveway and stopped, and I actually made it home. But there's no logical explanation for what happened.
You had the spirit energy giving you gasoline for the car.
I don't know, but it definitely, like, thinking about that made me think, maybe the Bridgewater Triangle is not all bad.
Right.
Maybe it's a powerhouse of energy, and it's good and bad. And one of the things that I've noticed is it seems like a lot of people hit the lottery around here.
Huh.
Well, that's a good thing.
I'm moving. No.
Yeah, right? I think it was maybe 2 years ago that it was just like, it went on for months.
So you hit the lottery then.
People hitting the lottery in the Bridgewater Triangle, but really right around the three Bridgewaters, East Bridgewater,
Right.
Bridgewater, and West Bridgewater. There was one night where like 7 people hit the lottery.
Oh, my
It was just
word.
bizarre.
So you've lived in the triangle your whole life then?
Pretty much. I moved to like the Boston area when I was younger, and then moved back here when I got pregnant with my oldest daughter, and moved back to the town I grew up in. And
So were you living in the triangle the night that they scrambled the airplanes? Because Reagan's plane was President Reagan at the time.
unfortunately, that's a myth.
Oh, it is
did
a
not
myth, huh?
happen.
Oh, because I saw it on. I read it in a couple different locations, and then
I know, it never happened. Actually, that story really did happen to Reagan, but I believe it happened over California. And somehow somebody placed it over Freetown Forest, but
Because
unfortunately it didn't happen.
well,
but
that's
there's not
good
a
to
lot
know.
of things you can debunk. Most of the stuff really happened, but that is
Because
one of the things
I
that
found
I
that on
definitely
a
debunked.
news channel source. Actually, that's why I use it.
Really?
Sometimes. Yeah.
Were they talking about the Bridgewater Triangle,
They
or
were
were they
talking
talking
about
about the incident?
No, they were talking the Bridgewater Triangle,
Yeah, so they probably just saw it on our website and didn't fact check.
and they put it out there. They had interviewed the original newscaster, actually, that was out there, supposedly. That's
I know
why-
what you're talking about. You're talking about the most famous UFO sighting of the Bridgewater Triangle and the two newscasters in 1979, right? I think that's what you're talking about.
Oh, maybe it's that one then.
Yeah, they worked for WHDH. They were off work and they were going to the Raynham dog track.
Right.
And when they were getting off of the highway, I saw this massive starship over them, massive, and they were freaked out, and they didn't want to tell anybody because they didn't want to be labeled as crazy. But so many people saw this. There were hundreds of witnesses. And when they saw that so many people came forward, they felt a little safer to come forward with their story, and they admitted what they saw. Some witnesses said it actually landed in Hockomock Swamp.
Huh.
Yeah,
How big is
Like-
this? How big is the swamp?
it's huge. And the thing is, it's not all connected.
Oh, okay.
So, like, it's not like you could walk from one part to another part. You know what I mean?
Yep.
It's all split up because, from construction and highways and road work, it's all split up. But it spans 5 towns.
Oh, wow.
And, yeah, it's pretty big. Someone actually told me something really interesting about Hockomock Swamp. They said that there are burial mounds in there, and that you only can see them on very, very droughty years,
Oh,
unless
all right. When
you
the
can
water
wade
recedes.
out to them. I thought that was really interesting because I've heard the theory that Hockomock Swamp is just this massive Native American burial ground, but I've only been able to find confirmation of one Native American burial that they found there, like one grave.
Okay.
So I found this super interesting. It seemed like a good source, so I'm definitely going to follow up on that.
Right.
Well, yeah, because the swamp, the Native Americans used that swamp, and we got to remember something too. When you're researching this stuff, it's best to find the oldest maps because swamps change. The more development you develop one end of it, that water's going to go somewhere else.
Absolutely.
And that
I
whole
agree.
area has been developed, redeveloped, and overdeveloped.
Yep.
Just like a lot of the state of Massachusetts is
Right.
way overdeveloped. So, I mean, you start digging in a swamp and you build a house, now you're going to move the water. The water's going to move to another lower spot on the swamp, and it's going to expand the swamp that way.
Uh-huh.
And that's what, especially before we had the wetland laws, in the 50s and 60s and 70s, and they weren't even that strong back then. They didn't get strong till the 80s, but there was at least some protection. But prior to that, they'd just fill in, build, and you're all set.
Yep.
And do you know anything about my other friend down there? Because he just made the news.
Paul?
No, the Dover Demon just made the news. The Dover Demon Monument is no longer in Dover.
Where is it?
It's on display at the International Cryptid Zoology Museum in Portland, Maine.
Maine.
Oh, awesome.
They just brought it up today. It was on the cryptid page that Nate runs, who works there, Nate Brislin, who I will have on my show soon. Talked about cryptozoology. We'll have him here.
What do you think the Dover Demon is?
I don't really know much. I want to say from the reports I got now, I've gotten some unconfirmed reports that the Dover Demon came back about 5 years ago. but they're so unconfirmed. It's the first time I've actually talked about it.
It seems like a very unique cryptid.
It is. I
can't find anything to really compare it to.
No, I almost wonder if it was more alien than cryptid. And I think they're getting things mixed up. Because if you look at the old shows and you look and you talk to the people who, and you look at the translation of the descriptions, and then when you get the people on, they are able to recreate these things, using computers. The thing doesn't look animalistic at all. Looks more like something that would come from another dimension or another.
It's very alien
looking, yeah.
in nature.
So, I want to say that's more alien than it is a cryptid.
That sounds like it makes sense to me.
And it's interesting. It only showed up once. It showed up early on. And it's, I've gotten unconfirmed reports about 4 or 5 years ago. Again, they came from a source that's, when you talk about using sources, there would be the last source you would use. You'd have to double check everything they said. And along the way, they may get it, I don't know where they got it from, but I did hear that probably about 4 or 5 years ago. But that was so unsubstantial, it wasn't even worth moving in on at that point. But yeah, I would think the Dover Demon is more probably alien-like than cryptid.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So
clearly UFOs. There's definitely, the likelihood is something could have been left, and it's managed to survive. However,
or it's something that's always here that can't always be seen.
Correct.
But sometimes can be. I wonder if it was seen near power lines by any chance, because I find that a lot of sightings of creatures, whether it be Bigfoot, Puckwudgies, what have you, a lot of times are near power lines. Do either one of you find that with paranormal?
You can find them with paranormal because the power lines have a high EMF, so it kind of gives it its spinach.
Yeah, I think so.
And I think that's what really goes on with that. And I think for the Bigfoot, if you've been out to the power line trails, I've gotten a lot of reports, and I think I told you this. If not, it's the first time. We should get together to have a cup of coffee and figure out all this stuff maybe one day. But the power line trails behind the Raynham Taunton Greyhound Park. Those lines there. I know it's not right behind. You got a little walking to do. I don't know how many, because I've walked that trail. I've walked close to 13 miles on that trail or so, 10 miles at least on that trail looking. And out in that area, every time I called King Philip, the wind would blow. Or medical.
Really?
But power line trails, the power line companies keep them well cut. And I think that's the reason why, because it's easy for them to move. It really is.
And
I definitely think that. If Bigfoot, it seems like that would be like the easiest way to travel would be through power lines, right?
Right.
It's easy to duck and hide.
Right.
It's clearly cut out. No human or animal wants to go through briars and get all cut up, right?
No, and not only that, when we were out there, we saw areas where, this was in March, we saw areas where the grass looked like someone camped in the grass pretty big. It were, the wild corn stalks were all bedded down and everything.
Yeah, it's funny, when I started researching the Bridgewater Triangle, that was like my least topic that I was interested in was Bigfoot. But it's honestly probably the thing that people see the most, like even to this day.
So what got you interested in researching the Bridgewater Triangle, if you don't mind me asking?
It was a combination of just me moving back to the area and my hometown, Hanson, which is definitely part of the Bridgewater Triangle, but it's not on the official map. Officially, it would be on the fringes,
What's the town?
Just broke-
Hampton?
Hanson.
Oh, Hanson. Oh, where the Air Force
Hanson.
Base is, yeah.
But it has all the characteristics of any town in the Bridgewater Triangle. It has a very, very heavy Native American presence historically. When I grew up in Hanson, everything was named after Native Americans. There was Indian Head Trail, Indian Head Street, Indian Head River. My school was called McQuan. My middle school was called Indian Head. But I never wondered why these place names were what the origin of them was. But when I was in my 30s and I moved back to Hanson, I started to wonder. And my parents at the time still lived in the same house I grew up in. And behind the house were these paths that we used to call bridle paths. And I went up there when I moved back to Hanson, and I thought, geez, this is weird. Like, there's all construction up here, but there's parts of these paths, and they're still clearly carved out, but I know nobody's been up here, like, to walk them. And then all of a sudden it just came to me in a flash. These are native paths. These have been walked on for thousands of years, and that's why these are still carved out.
Right.
You know, these have been burned and cleared so many times. So I went to the Historical Society and wanted to know about the history, the Native American history in my hometown, but they couldn't tell me. They seem to like have the history of the town started like at Civil War times, but they were curious and they were really helpful. They took me down to the town hall and showed me the original map of the town, and I looked at my street, and sure enough, those were native paths. And my street was called Cross Street, and the reason why it was called Cross Street was because it was an Indian crossway. And it kind of linked all the waterways in the area, the ponds and the rivers. And, yeah, I thought that was absolutely fascinating. So at that time, when I was exploring the Native American history of Hanson and the Massachusetts tribe, that's the tribe that lived in my town, and there's at least one known village that was still had settlers in the 1700s. At the same time, I learned about the Bridgewater Triangle. I bought Weird, Massachusetts for a friend's daughter who was into the paranormal. And right before her birthday party, I was skimming through it, and I came across the chapter about the Bridgewater Triangle, and my jaw dropped. Because in it was this... Huh?
And you were hooked.
Oh, totally hooked. And it was a story that happened when I was 6 years old, and it was a story about this dog that ate the throat of a pony and was like on the loose, and schools were shut down in the town. And I remember climbing up in a tree like 25 feet and staying up there all day because I was so afraid of this dog. And my whole life, I asked people, remember that story about that dog, that monster dog? And nobody could remember it. And I'm like, did I just imagine this whole thing? But it was in the book. Sure enough,
awesome.
It was in the book.
That's awesome.
Well, Kristen,
So-
I'm going to actually have you back on this show because we're coming.
All right.
This has been a great one. We'll have you on one of the regular 1 hour long shows where we're going to talk the whole hour about the
All right, sounds
Bridgewater
good.
Triangle. And I'm probably going to, we even got spirits inside the studio now. We got ghosts in the studio.
Wow.
That's awesome. Live on air on Spooktacular Halloween. We had... This has been a great evening so far.
Wow.
And I want to thank you for coming on, but I'm going to have you and Paulino come on together. I'm going to try
That
to
would
get
be
that
awesome.
to work. And I think that'll be a great show.
Yeah,
I
I
wanna
think we'd
thank you.
have a lot to say.
We would. Yeah, that'll be a great show. So I want to thank you very much, Kristen.
Thanks
And
for
we'll
having
be
me
talking
on, and
soon.
happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween.
Halloween.
Have a great evening. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye, guys.
Bye-bye. All righty. This has been
What was that?
a spooktacular night. It was a picture up on the wall, just decided to fall off the wall.
No joke, but I have been going between super cold spells in here. And then, okay, it's not just me.
We're having a great evening on this spooktacular Halloween night.
I
We
have
have the
been
ghost,
to
we
the
have the
point where-
Bigfoot.
It's been freezing, literally
And
freezing.
things are going great. It's getting cooler in here. We're having a great evening.
Insane.
We just talked about the haunted Bridgewater Triangle.
There's also Thunderbirds in the triangle.
And Thunderbirds, yes, which
That-
we'll
that
get to. Yeah,
fascinates me.
that's a very fascinating thing, Thunderbirds. So we got a few minutes here. So let's talk about.
What's going on in the studio?
No, let's talk about. I get it.
not? We're
yeah,
here.
we
This
got
is a
heat.
paranormal
Yeah, that's
show.
true. We got heat changes in the air.
No, I was so cold at one point, I couldn't even stand it.
And then we just had something fall
And then
off
we
the
just
wall.
had something fall off the wall. And there literally is 3 of us in this room.
Yes.
That's it.
It's been a great evening so far, and
I think we need to do an investigation.
yeah, let's see what happens. You know what we need to discuss though? Let's go back over, since we're in the Bridgewater Triangle. We talked about Native Americans. I think the next thing we need to talk about right now would be the Native Americans that roamed this land and what they left behind.
I mean,
We're in historic downtown Lawrence, right on the historic, beautiful Merrimack River. It's so beautiful. There are parts of this river you'd think you're in the Riviera. In fact, there's part of the river called the Riviera. It's no longer there, but there was a hot dog stand on the Riviera. So,
I mean, Native Americans clearly.
yeah, we're waiting on possibly one more Spooktacular group calling in.
I know. I'm so
And,
excited.
The Native Americans that roamed this land had islands and everything all over the place.
Well, in the Bridgewater Triangle, it mentions King Philip.
Yep.
Well, King Philip is also where I live in Sandown, New Hampshire. There have been reports, and there's historical facts that King Philip possibly was up there and had some tribes up there as well. I have a spearhead that we found, or that my husband's family found, believe it or not, in a vegetable garden.
Oh, interesting.
And Philip's Pond, they believe, is named after King Philip in Sandown.
Correct.
So, I mean, that's quite you think of his just what his nation, how much land he encompassed, from the Bridgewater Triangle to southern New Hampshire. I mean, he quite an influence. Quite an influence.
So, yeah, no, it's been quite an influential time, actually.
Yep.
We've enjoyed the night, and we've enjoyed.
It's
been a great night. We're talking about, and on the river, there's actually islands that actually have some spirit attachment. We've been on a couple of them out on the river where they've actually had spirit attachment, which is interesting. There was an old Native American fort at Jackson Terrace in Lawrence here.
Oh, wow.
Not a couple miles from the studio, not that far.
Cool.
But there was an old Native American fort.
Native Americans
Did roam this land.
and they were always near water. I mean,
Right.
that was a huge.
Because you had to move, travel,
Right.
make your way through. It was always an interesting location. But, we just have to, and the spirits, and then, of course, Lawrence is a mill city.
It is.
Not too far from here was the Pemberton Mill disaster.
Right.
We're
Right.
literally right on the footsteps of it. We're between it. Pemberton Mill's a quarter of a mile down the road, and they use Lawrence City Hall, which isn't too far from here either, as the hospital,
Oh, wow.
where there's been a lot of people that died from the Pemberton disaster.
And when you think of it, even along the Merrimack, you've got Lowell. You've got, you're going up into Nashua, and
Oh,
we got a phone call.
we got our last guest of the evening calling in. Hi, Missy. Welcome to the most spooktacular Halloween event there is in New England. The most spooktacular show there has been. It's been a very spooky evening. How's it going down in southern Maine?
It's going really good. I'm glad to hear that you're having a good time tonight.
How you guys doing out there on Halloween? A lot of trick-or-treaters?
Yeah, we actually had a pretty good amount. Richie's here with me too.
Hey, Rich.
Hey, Tom.
Hey, you enjoyed trick-or-treating tonight? Did you go out?
We didn't, but we had we stayed here and held down the fort and passed out some candy to our little ones coming our way.
Nice. A lot of kids?
A good amount, good fair amount for a given situation.
Well, that's excellent. So, you guys make up Paranormal 5, and what's interesting about your group is it's a family group. It's not just a group of people. It's you, your husband, and your kids.
You're right.
Which is one of the few groups in this area that are made up that way. Actually, I think the only... Oh, wait a minute. Kathy's group, too.
It's me and my daughter and my son.
Yeah, I forgot about that, yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
It is.
So, yeah, sorry about that, Kathy.
That's
I
okay.
just drew
It's all
a
right,
blank.
Tom. I have only,
It's been a long night. It's been we even had activity here. We've had the
We've
the
actually had
temperature
some
change.
activity here tonight.
Oh, really?
We had
That's
the
so
temperature
cool.
change. Something fell off the wall. It's been a fun evening so far. So, how long you guys been together for at Paranormal 5?
We kind of started this about a year and a half ago. Like, we had big talks about doing this, but finally, like, getting it and doing it and starting it was probably be about, like, a year and a half ago.
Awesome. From what I can see online, your children are younger.
Yes, they are.
And it's cool to watch because both my children were younger as well when we started doing the any paranormal type investigating. Do your children have abilities?
I definitely think that they do have their own gifts. It's something that we definitely don't push.
Right.
It's something that they kind of need to grow and develop on their own. But I definitely sense that one particular child, our middle son, definitely has a lot more gifts, I guess, than his other two siblings.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep. My middle son, same. My oldest son, nothing. So it's good though
it's
because
funny. And you wonder if it's if it's nothing or if it's just
doesn't want to
hasn't
acknowledge
opened
it.
up to it. Yeah, sure, right.
And he's definitely the resident skeptic whenever we do anything.
It's always good to have a skeptic in the
Agreed.
family.
Agreed.
Definitely need balance when you go out there. So you guys have been together about a year and a half in the paranormal, that is.
Yeah.
And you just finished a great investigation actually, let's go back a little further. You went out to one of my favorite places that I've only been to once in my life. Being a historian, historians like to be out where there's good history. And there's a place called Gettysburg.
Oh, love it.
Where our nation became free. Are you familiar with Gettysburg?
We're like almost like wrapping up your show, right? Like I could talk 3 hours about Gettysburg.
Well, we have some time, so if we can condense that show, maybe I'll have you guys come in studio and we'll do a 3-hour special on the haunting of Gettysburg. Because I like doing these longer shows. In fact, we're having a great time tonight. This is just flying through. It's
unbelievable.
It's an unbelievable night. With everything going on, the speakers we've had on. I mean, we made history tonight, and we're still making history.
I would love to have you come on and talk to Gettysburg because I've been to Gettysburg probably 30 times.
Oh, I think I'm right there with you, Kathy, on that one.
So what was your most memorable experience at Gettysburg?
I feel like it's kind of hard to like pinpoint one because I feel like I've had so many first time experiences there. But I will have to say is when we were all down there, it was back in April 2019. And we had all gone down there to take a family trip. And all 5 of us experienced and saw our first full body apparition, and we were able to experience and witness that together as a family. Yes, exactly. We saw it, photographed it as a family.
And it's kind of interesting, like there was another couple there that was like actually pointed it out to us and said that it had been there for quite some time, and they went to the other side of the where this entity was, and by the time they got over there, it wasn't there, but it came back, and we had actually gotten pictures from when we first got there, and it was in the picture then, and it was in the picture when we were taking pictures of it. So we have multiple pictures of it from multiple different times, validating the couple's story and kind of backing up our experience.
Oh, that's
awesome. We talked about it the other night, and Missy had brought something up and made a really good point. It was such a unique experience because on one hand, we're all witnessing our first, full body apparition, which, that's one of the, that's one of the things you do this for. But also, our kids were witnessing it at the same time. So, you're torn between watching their reaction as they see this unexplainable thing for the first time versus, well, forget the kids. We're watching the same thing too. So it was kind of this.
We didn't know who to, I didn't know who to watch in the situation or what to watch. Like, I'm just like, do I watch the kids? Do I watch I was going back and forth. It was just a crazy experience. And it was funny because I recently went back in August with the kids and my mother and my middle son, and he's just like, well, I just want to see an actual ghost again. And I'm just like, buddy, it doesn't happen like all the time. Like there's like people that have gone like years with like being in this field that haven't had that experience, and you got to see it. And he's just like, well, all I smelled was cooking hot dogs, and because we smelled tobacco, and that's what it smelled like to him was cooking hot dogs. And I'm just like, and he was complaining about that, and he's like, yeah, all I smelled was cooking hot dogs.
Well, that's an experience.
Yeah, but apparently it wasn't good enough for him.
No, because he saw a full body apparition, so he thinks every time you go back to Gettysburg, where we learned our country became free.
They're ready to hang out with us.
Yeah, no, he wants it right then and there.
Right, and we all know ghosts don't operate on that time frame. We wish they did sometimes, but reality they don't, and that's interesting. Anything else happened at Gettysburg that you'd like to talk about?
Like I said, I've had many firsts. Actually, one time, I tell everybody, like, I've always been very interested and very passionate about the paranormal. Gettysburg has always been a very special spot for me, but I guess becoming a new mom, like, I kind of fizzled out of my passion and stuff like that because I was kind of focusing on new mom life. And so I was down there. We're doing just a quick trip down to Gettysburg. It was me and my mom, and I actually just had my oldest and my middle son, and he was a baby. He was probably just almost a year old. And we were over on Sachs Bridge, and we were getting ready to head on back, like to walk to the other side of the bridge back to where you could park. And as I was getting my daughter's hand to walk back over, I felt somebody grab my arm, kind of like a strong grab on my arm. And I looked over thinking like, what is that? Like, I was like, at the time, I was like, what is this bug doing on me? Or like, I didn't know really what to process and what to think that it was. And I look over, my whole arm is like nothing but goosebumps. And I instantly like panicked, and I'm just like, we're not supposed to be here right now. We're kind of overstayed our boundaries. We overstayed our welcome, and we got to go. And at that moment, like, I just kind of boogied with the kids and left my mom behind. I'm just like, I'm out.
I love the Sachs Bridge. I was there with my dad, and my dad's a pastor, but he kept saying, there's something over by that light. There's something, if you're where you park, and then at the other end of the bridge is the big spot, like they just have one light. I ended up taking a picture of it and got almost like an ectoplasmic orb.
Really?
Yeah, and my dad totally felt it the whole time.
That's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, and I never even knew until probably 5 years ago that that bridge existed.
Really?
It's not because it's not the normal tour of
Yeah,
Gettysburg.
no, it's off the beaten path.
Yes.
And that's what I love about Gettysburg is that they have, like, it's definitely, Sachs Bridge has definitely become more popular over the years, I think,
Yes.
because of the reputation that it has. But I remember going to Sachs Bridge, and I actually, when I was, like, younger, like, my parents kind of, like, loved my hobby. They kind of grew to enjoy doing this hobby, like, ghost paranormal investigating and stuff like that when I was a kid. And so my mom and dad set up one time to go down, and we actually investigated with a local paranormal investigator from Gettysburg, or she was the next town over in Maryland, the Taney town.
Okay.
And we went there and investigated, and it was amazing. It was my first time going there. I had no idea that it was over there. And
right.
Yeah, it's usually like one of our first stops to make, because
absolutely
we always
love it.
Between just like the wildlife too, like the kids have a blast, like seeing,
right.
like a crawfish and ducks and looking for fish and turtles. Like we always find something. And then I'm just like, and it's an added bonus that it's pretty active, paranormally active.
It's a great spot, a super spot.
Yeah. Yeah, and actually we're heading down to Gettysburg at the end of November, so.
Oh,
that'll be fun.
Yeah, we're super excited.
That'll be fun. So the next thing is Parsons Field. You guys went up to this little known place in Maine that wasn't that haunted, and had a very exciting time.
Yeah,
we did. We've been wanting to get up there and checking it out, and it's kind of in our backyard. It's about 25 minutes or so, 30 minutes from us, and every time we talk about it, I always say, just like even my first drive up there, you're driving up on these old kind of country style roads and these old farm style houses, and they're just you're driving into just a different time. Not necessarily back in time, but you feel like you've traveled so much further than you actually have. And then you get there, and the building, I mean, just paranormal aside, just the building is beautiful, the construction of the building, the location of it, its surroundings, everything about it is just a great thing to go by and see. And, so we were fortunate enough, Misty had been working and volunteering up there, making some connections with the Friends of Parson, the group that is responsible for taking care of it, and, got the idea of putting together a big group investigation and to help kind of raise money for the Parson Field and the people that keep that going.
Right,
so,
which is a nonprofit.
Yep, it is a nonprofit. Yep. Everything just goes to the the upkeep of the property, and it turned out really well. I mean, we weren't really sure what to expect, and we ended up selling out the event, and we had people show up, and we broke everyone off into groups, and went out there to try to have your own personal experiences, and I think that there was some mixed reactions. I know some people, had great experiences there, both personal and with some equipment. There were some groups that kind of, were just there and were in the moment, but didn't quite get much. And so it was really good. I think everyone took something away from that investigation, and it's definitely become a new favorite spot of ours that we're definitely looking to keep.
It might be it's not close to Gettysburg, but it's like, yes, if there was a second, it's getting up there.
It's just not a close second. It's almost a close second.
Yes, definitely.
And then you guys have your own show on Facebook, on your Paranormal 5 show that people can tune in once a week. Friend them so they can see that. And then, of course, we do the Monday night Tales from the Dark Side of the Crypt, which has been great.
With our favorite crypt keeper.
Yeah. I don't know who that is.
He doesn't talk much, so it's hard to...
Yeah, I know. The Crypt Keeper will be calling you real soon, because we got to figure out what the Crypt's going to open up to this week.
I know. I hope the Crypt Keeper gets enough, recharges enough from.
We'll be ready to open up the Crypt one more time. I love going into the Crypt. In fact, I was at the Crypt yesterday morning doing another live, a quick paranormal hit on a local radio show. Actually,
nice.
I actually did it right from the Crypt in the snow, because we had snow around here yesterday.
We didn't get any snow.
You didn't get any snow?
No.
Wow, they're only about maybe an hour from us, so That's
nothing.
interesting.
In fact, I was down in Salisbury earlier today, and I was very surprised at how much snow was there compared to what we got up our way.
Yeah, no, and it's been cold, so we got some snow on the ground and it's sticking.
Yeah.
Hopefully
It's
tomorrow
coming.
it melts away in time for tomorrow night's major investigation at Hilldale Cemetery. Hopefully that's still on. So if anybody wants to sign up, they get a hold of me and you can come on down. So what else so what else happens up in Maine around you? Do you have any favorite haunted locations near you?
Growing up here in Maine, growing up in Kittery, the forts have always been just a great spot, both just to go and enjoy, and then, later in life, diving more into this interest and learning more about them. You've got Fort McClary, you've got Fort Foster up this way. Both could definitely give you some activity when you're looking for it. What else?
I like the Old York Historical Society. I've been to the old jail before, and also just like their cemetery that's attached to the historical society.
Right, we went out there and met you out there, and that was quite an active location, that cemetery.
Yeah, no, it's a very interesting. There's a lot of history. Another spot that's kind of becoming like a good spot is Old Field Cemetery in South Berwick. That's kind of like an off the beaten path cemetery. Actually, somebody who's buried there fought in the Battle of Gettysburg.
Oh wow!
So, yeah, no, it was really interesting. Yeah.
And when you're in Maine, don't look behind you or to the left of you, because what you're going to find is another cemetery.
Yep.
Pretty much.
Yep.
Kittery Point, Maine, for our listeners listening, 156 burial grounds. Wells, Maine have just about the same amount, if not a little bit more. I can't remember the exact number, but those are at least two communities.
Yeah, actually, my friend who lives in Wells, she was telling me that she has 2 headstones in her backyard. She was telling me yesterday, and I'm just like, I may have to come over and check this out.
Yeah, sounds like to me that they're probably, if they look up the family history, I bet they lived or farmed that land 100 years ago. Or more.
Yeah, no, it'd be interesting to find out exactly who it was for sure in the time frame.
Yeah, I mean, cemeteries are open-air museums. They're just fun to walk through and enjoy walking around. There's not one cemetery I would not enjoy walking around in. I enjoy walking in every one of them.
Yeah, I haven't found one that I didn't enjoy walking in yet.
Oh, I'll take you to one day. I'll take both of you to one day. We talked about it earlier on the show. Children of Israel in Haverhill.
Oh.
We had to take one team member out in the back of a pickup truck. We had to, I got Get Out, a Class A EVP on a tape recorder, not a digital, a cassette recorder.
I love that, kicking it old school.
Kicking old school. That's what I love doing best, kicking it old school.
I know, but it's like the most, you can't blame it on technology if something gets messed up. That's what they used to use. That's what started it all, old reliable.
Yeah, and it actually started with what I've been trying to do for years, is get a battery backup together so I could actually go out on an investigation with a great way to do EVP, and that would be a reel-to-reel. I own 2 reel-to-reels. It's just getting the power to them.
Really?
Yeah, you probably don't remember what a reel-to-reel is. Kathy doesn't either.
I know what, I've seen it. I'm like Richie said, I'm drawing it with my fingers right now.
And the other thing I'd like to try to use would be an 8-track, but I have 8-track players, but I haven't found the empty 8-tracks that you could record on yet. But I would love to try one of those. I don't know if Kathy knows what that is either. Most people, I know you know that.
You are.
No, I'm the oldest one in the room. Are you kidding me?
What are you talking about, Kathy? He is 88.
I'm 88. Yeah, you got it. So, Parsons Field, that. Any other places you like to go investigate? Oh, wait a minute. You went to my favorite place. I almost forgot. I wanted to talk to you about that. We got time? Of course we got time.
Yeah.
I have to watch.
You're the running of the show, Tom.
Yeah.
You're the boss.
Bridgewater Triangle, real quick. What'd you get
yes.
down there?
We went. We went to a neighborhood right off of, is it Route 24 by the Taunton racetrack, the dog track? Yeah. There was a neighborhood out there that had a trail that walked the length of the Hockomock Swamp. Oh. And we walked that, and we got an answer on, we got an EVP. One of the person that we were with thought that she heard something. And so she was saying to mark your voice recorder. And as she finished that, we heard somebody say no. It was kind of creepy because it sounded like it was so close.
They leaned right in to let us know.
Yeah. I got poked in the back.
Yeah, physical touch, and there's a lot of accounts out there of light play. And I don't know if it's just the layout and with the water, but you couldn't help it. Just kind of all the light. By the time the sun fell, you just see this kind of green, ominous glow off in the distance, and it almost looks like rippling water, but yet up in the trees. And it had this really weird light play throughout the whole throughout the whole woods out there, and not to mention just that. Overwhelming feeling of not necessarily of being followed, but almost more of in a trickster kind of way where you kept wanting to turn around and you were going to see something just quickly dart off the trail so you couldn't see it and then come right back once you turned around. But it was more of this playful, I'm following you, but I'm going to stay back so you can't see me.
Right.
And that was pretty much the whole way in and the whole way out.
Oh, cool.
Interesting. Cool.
Yeah, and then while we were just waiting, when we were just kind of wrapping up at the car, just saying our goodbyes and everything like that, we got the overwhelming same thing, sense somebody was just standing right at the beginning of the trail, just waiting for us to kind of be peace out, guys, and then that whole greenish glow, there was just flash of lights a few times in random spots along the trail. It was very interesting. And then we also went to Adawan Rock, which was just very peaceful.
All right, we're gonna hold Adawan Rock for another show where I'll have you guys on for a whole hour and we can talk about all those excursions. And I may end up putting a round table together on the Bridgewater Triangle. It's never been done before, so we're thinking of doing that now. So I want to thank you guys, and don't forget to tune in on Monday night, 8 o'clock. We'll be on the air discussing something. We'll figure it out tomorrow. All right. Thank you, guys.
Right. Have a good night.
Yes, thank you. It was nice talking with you guys.
Thank you. Have a good night. Bye-bye.
Yep, bye-bye.
All right. We're coming down to the end of this historic moment. Woo! 3 hours. 3 hours and actually 15 minutes. We pulled off.
Don't forget to turn your clocks back
tonight. Yeah, don't forget to turn the clocks back tonight. That would be a fun thing. If you didn't do that, you'd be messed up tomorrow morning when you're getting up.
I still think I'm going to be messed up.
Yeah, probably. I want to thank everybody at the studio for allowing this to happen tonight, because without Daniel and without everybody else, this would never have happened. So I want to thank you for that.
Thank you, Tom, for having me on.
Thank you, Kathy, for co-hosting this for 3 hours long. This was a great experience.
It was awesome.
And I think next year I want to try for 4 hours. This has been a fun time. We'll have to do it earlier, though. But other than that, I want to thank everybody for tuning in at home on Roku, on Channel 98, Channel 8, and, of course, the website. I want to thank you all.
LawrenceCTV.com.
And I want to thank everybody at home, and I'll see you guys in the paranormal. Thank you for tuning in tonight.
Good night.
Have a great evening. Bye-bye.